In a world ruled by absolute power, a new dark destiny is about to be forged within the depths of this glowing abyss. A terrifying legend reveals that every successor must first pass a brutal trial set by the supreme ruler of the underworld before they can march to destroy the human realm. Only those of unmatched malice can ever hope to claim the ultimate crown. As bones decay in the darkness, the grim reality of this ruthless competition becomes painfully clear. To ensure their success, a divine decree is issued to the chosen few. The supreme ruler of the underworld promises to bestow a unique, reality-bending power upon each of the rising commanders. Deep within a shadowy Gothic hall, the newly crowned commander Kairos rests on a crimson couch alongside his loyal aide Lilith. Kairos clenches his fist in determination, ready to claim his rightful place in the dark pantheon. Steeling his resolve, the black-haired commander prepares to unleash the fearsome power he was granted. Suddenly losing his composure, Kairos buries his face in his hands and desperately asks Lilith to remind him of his designated ability. Lilith delivers the devastating news, revealing that his sovereign power is simply the luck-based system of gacha. Shocked and utterly appalled, Kairos looks on in absolute disbelief as the reality of his useless skill sinks in. Throwing a massive comedic temper tantrum, Kairos rants that this absurd power offers zero physical strength, elemental manipulation, or ancient wisdom. Well, that is certainly one way to handle a mid-career crisis. Kairos continues to despair, imagining how humiliating it will be to descend upon the human world with nothing but a lottery system. He envisions a terrifying future where he floats before a mighty human hero wielding a massive golden blade, only to be completely defenseless. The imagined hero ends up howling with laughter as Chibi Kairos frantically tries to summon random wooden boxes in a panic. Desperate to save his reputation, Kairos begs his aid if there is any way to swap his useless ability. Lilith can only offer a sheepish, apologetic look in response to his desperate plea. She explains that any authority designated by the great demon king Estrella is completely absolute and can never be altered or removed. Kairos weeps comically, pleading to at least add a second power to help him survive. Lilith instantly crushes his hopes, confirming that even that is completely impossible. Kairos sighs in deep defeat, wondering how on earth he is supposed to conquer the mortal realm using nothing but pure luck. Lilith quickly warns him to stop insulting their supreme leader, but Kairos angrily snaps back that he has every right to complain. A terrifying, glowing-eyed specter of the supreme ruler looms over them as Lilith delivers a final warning that any further disrespect will result in instant execution. Kairos wildly gestures in frustration, demanding to know why every other commander got normal, destructive magic while he was singled out for this joke. Lilith hesitates, sweating nervously as she prepares to reveal the embarrassing truth behind the selection. A secret memory reveals the fearsome supreme ruler ignoring his dark duties to play mobile games on his phone all day. Talk about a highly committed administrator. Lilith confesses that the supreme leader reached the #1 spot on the server leaderboard solely because of his crippling gacha addiction. Kairos rests his head on his hand in utter disbelief, completely dumbfounded by the stupidity of his fate. Realizing he has no other choice, Kairos steals his resolve and commands Lilith to activate the summon right now. A brilliant golden magic circle erupts beneath Kairos' boots as the summoning sequence begins. Magical golden cubes begin to materialize all around him, signaling that his cosmic lottery is officially started. Pumping himself up, Kairos desperately prays to summon a legendary beast or a high-tier destructive spell. With a festive burst of confetti, a tiny harmless green slime bounces out of the golden box. Kairos stares in a deadpan, soul-crushing silence at his pathetic reward. The tiny green slime rests happily on his head, prompting Lilith to nervously suggest that he try opening another one. With another pop of confetti, a pink slime bounces out of the next cube. To his mounting horror, the third golden chest yields yet another green slime. Now completely covered in a stack of adorable, squeaking slimes, Kairos seethes with rage as Lilith points out he has one final box left to open. The final glowing golden cube floats in the air, pulsing with mysterious energy as everything rides on this last roll. Kairos reaches out a trembling finger to tap the floating magical box. A blinding explosion of golden light catches him off guard, leaving him gasping in surprise. Out of the swirling purple mist, the young, sleeping succubus with purple hair and bat wings slowly floats down. Kairos violently shakes a dizzy Lilith in absolute fury, screaming that his grand prize is a combat-useless underage demon, while Lilith weakly attempts to congratulate him. He throws another hilarious tantrum, screaming about all the hard work he wasted at the academy just to end up with this terrible luck. Storming off in exasperation, Kairos mutters that since his destiny is locked in, he will just have to find a way to adapt. Suddenly, Kairos stops in his tracks, his face twisting into a sinister, highly confident grin. Lilith stares in absolute shock and confusion, taken aback by his sudden, terrifying shift in attitude. Raising his fists as a fierce crimson fire ignites behind him, Kairos declares that true demons must always struggle and strive to conquer their limitations. Turning back with a cold, commanding gaze, Kairos orders Lilith to open the gateway to the mortal realm, ready to turn his pathetic luck into absolute domination. Determined to take his destiny into his own hands, the black-haired commander Kairos, stealing his resolve, vows to confront the great demon king Estrella himself. To do so, he must navigate the terrifying landscapes of the demon world where chaotic red lightning tears through the violent skies. This is a bleak domain defined entirely by death, absolute darkness, and towering spires of shadow. Arriving outside the Demon King's office, Karos strides forward alongside his loyal, dark-haired secretary Lilith. Suddenly, a violent magical blast erupts down the hallway, catching the black-haired commander completely off guard. He immediately regrets his choices, realizing this visit is going horribly wrong. Out of the smoke steps a red-haired woman surrounded by blue lightning, expressing her fierce desire to finally confront Karos. Sensing extreme danger, Karl's sweat drops and desperately tries to de-escalate the situation, suggesting they take their conflict elsewhere. The red-haired warrior completely rejects his plea, angrily shouting for him to shut up while declaring her intent to obliterate him. Karos sweats in panic, fully aware of just how troublesome this encounter has become. Unleashing her fury, the red-haired assailant hurls twin spheres of crackling blue lightning directly at him. Karos narrowly dodges the high-voltage assault, commenting on her incredibly short temper. Panic spreads instantly as nearby demon guards and citizens flee in terror from the destructive clash. Leaping into the air, the crimson-haired attacker dives downward with an absolute intent to kill. Lilith quickly leaps into action, grabbing her commander to drag him away from the lethal strike. Unrelenting, the red-haired demon charges another massive electrical orb, swearing to completely fry her target. Showing her own resourcefulness, Lilith hurls a heavy red-cushioned throne to block the incoming attack. The intense electrical blast tears right through the flying piece of furniture. The throne explodes into splinters, forcing Karos and Lilith to dive for cover in the middle of the corridor. Batesia's fury only intensifies as her fangs bare in a terrifying display of demonic rage. Lilith steps forward to shield her commander, demanding the intruder respect the sacred halls of the Demon King. Ignoring the warning, the hostile demon charges again, determined that killing Karos will resolve everything. With a brutal shockwave, she blasts Lilith out of the way to clear a path. Lilith cries out in pain as the devastating electrical shock courses through her body. A blinding explosion of magical energy completely consumes the corridor. Horrified, Karos screams out his secretary's name through the blinding dust and debris. But out of the shadows, Lilith stands firm, her dark secretary uniform intact as she declares her absolute devotion to Karos. With her golden eyes glowing menacingly, Lilith warns that anyone who harms Karos will face her ultimate wrath. Instead of being intimidated, the red-haired adversary merely smirks with absolute confidence. Stepping between them, Karos desperately tries once more to prevent a full-blown war inside the palace. Batesia clenches her fist, declaring she will execute Karos even if it means facing the great Demon King's executioners. Staring at her, Karos silently calculates his odds and realizes that a direct fight right now means certain death. Despite his current weakness, Karos reminds himself that he still holds the title of a Demon King. He tightly clenches his fist in frustration, deeply humiliated by his current helplessness. Lilith is pushed back by the sheer force of the hostile demons mounting pressure. Panting heavily, Lilith demands to know the true identity of their monstrously powerful foe. The red-haired assailant smugly introduces herself as Batesia Confretia, a supreme ruler governing a tenth of the earthly realm. Lilith's face pale in sheer shock as she repeats the legendary name. Though there are 72 demon kings in total, only a select few hold absolute dominance over the world. Among these rulers stands Caperia Bordos, the dreaded demon king of despair and grief. Beside him sits Rubernea Malmus, the legendary demon king of dejection and sorrow. Completing the high pantheon are Sotracross, the demon king of joy and madness, alongside the lethal Batesia Confretia. Her name alone strikes fear into the hearts of both humans and demons alike. Lilith realizes in horror that they are standing face to face with one of the legendary 4 great demon kings. Rising into the air, Batesia gathers a colossal sphere of magical energy to finish them once and for all. The Shu atmospheric pressure causes the very stone walls of the palace to crumble and collapse. With a sadistic grin, the legendary ruler dives straight down to unleash her ultimate attack. A colossal beam of absolute destruction is fired directly at the defenseless commander. The devastating magical beam strikes, enveloping the entire hallway in a blinding pillar of light. In a final desperate act of loyalty, Lilith shoves Karos out of harm's way just as the explosion completely consumes him. A devastating magic beam strikes, but Karos survives the blast by shielding his loyal secretary. The terrifying energy dissipates in the harmless blue sparks around them. Batesia stands completely dumbfounded by her failed ultimate attack. Karos checks on his secretary as the smoke begins to clear. Lilith opens her eyes, utterly bewildered to find herself still alive. Lilith quickly realizes that Karos possessed the legendary power of magic nullification. Batesia frantically demands to know how they survived her lethal strike. The young commander casually shrugs, admitting he is just as confused. Lilith explains the rarity of the nullification ability, questioning how Karos acquired it. Suddenly, a menacing shadow looms at the end of the corridor. Heavy echoing footsteps approach through the settling dust. The great demon king Astrea finally appears, teasing them about their chaotic clash. Batesia and Karos nervously laugh off the awkward confrontation. The trio gathers around a grand table inside the sovereign's chambers. The supreme ruler asks the purpose of their sudden visit. Karos complains that there's a major issue with his assigned power. Batisia silently labels the young commander as completely insane. Karos explains his deep frustration with receiving a useless gotcha system. Batisia violently spits out her drink in pure disbelief. Karos points triumphantly, claiming her shock is the only natural reaction. He laments that the power is too erratic to instill any fear. The Great Demon King asks if he wants to change his ability. Astrea cold-heartedly rejects the request, leaving Karos utterly devastated. The ruler admits he finds the gotcha concept far too entertaining to alter. Karos yells in outrage at being given a joke power for amusement. The king shifts the conversation, signaling that he has other matters to address. The supreme ruler addresses Batisia Confretia by her terrifying official title. Batisia freezes in terror as her name is called out. Astrea fiercely admonishes her for bringing disgrace right outside his personal office. With a simple wave of his hand, a violent dark vortex erupts. Batisia begs for mercy as she is swallowed by the crushing vortex. The suffocating darkness tightens around her throat as she gasps for breath. The supreme leader prepares to deliver his final, devastating judgment. Astrea strips Batisia of her legendary title, casting her down in disgrace. He decrees that a substitute will immediately replace her former position. As a final punishment, she is ordered to serve under Karos. Both of them stare in absolute horror at the unthinkable command. The supreme leader smugly asks if either of them has any objections. The heavy doors slam shut, leaving them with their minds completely blown. Later that night, Karos sleeps soundly in his private chambers. Suddenly, his eyes snap open as a sudden disturbance wakes him. He sits up only to find Batisia standing by his bed holding slimes. Karos screams in utter despair, wishing this was just a nightmare. Batisia violently kicks him, furious that he is complaining about her presence. She throws a massive tantrum, refusing to accept her demoted status. Lilith holds the raging former general back as Karos sighs in defeat. Batisia sits on the couch, aggressively pouting about her terrible fate. Lilith nervously points out that they cannot disobey the absolute ruler. Lilith sweat drops and suggests Batisia pick a room for herself first. She cheerfully explains that his current room serves as both office and bedroom. Determined to carve his own path, the young commander secures his hidden stronghold as Lilith showcases her private quarters connected directly below his bedroom. But she is not the only resident living in this sprawling fortress, as the sunlit attic space serves as a nesting ground for their slimes and succubus. Right on cue, a sudden wave of frantic energy awakens the horned succubus, who squeals in absolute delight upon hearing about her new lord. Before Karos can even react, the winged menace launches herself forward like a guided missile, catching him completely off guard. She collides with him head-on, wrapping him in an aggressively tight embrace that squeezes the breath right out of his lungs. The chaotic greeting quickly turns painful as she playfully yanks a fistful of his dark hair, leaving him utterly exasperated. Lilith calmly observes the chaotic display, completely unbothered as she notes their resident succubus has finally awakened. With absolutely no sense of boundaries, the joyful girl makes herself comfortable right on top of her commander's head. The domestic chaos only intensifies as a pair of bouncy, gelatinous slimes happily slide around their feet. Curious about their actual combat utility, Karos launches a green slime into the air to test its magical powers. But his focus is instantly shattered when the hungry succubus sinks her fangs directly into his scalp. A painful shriek echoes through the corridors as Karos discovers she has literally chewed a bald patch into his hair. But as the throbbing pain settles, a sudden stroke of absolute genius flashes in the young commander's eyes. Turning a dark, menacing smirk toward his newest royal hostage, Karos reminds the trembling Batisia of her absolute vow of obedience. With his pawns finally in place, the legend of this highly improbable sovereign officially begins. Night falls over his isolated domain, masking the dangerous secrets hidden deep within its walls. A massive, pulsating magical barrier flickers to life, completely shrouding the ancient castle from the outside world. Inside his private study, Karos enjoys a brief moment of quiet while Lilith delivers her weekly administrative report. He casually inquires about their hot-tempered captive, noting that the explosive warrior has been suspiciously quiet for a week. Adjusting her glasses, the loyal secretary reassures him that there is absolutely nothing to worry about regarding Batisia. Outside, the feared former commander is actually having the absolute time of her life playing with their bouncy slimes. Karos watches her ecstatic laughter and realizes her actual mental age perfectly matches their childish succubus. Shifting back to serious business, he demands an immediate status update on the surrounding hostile factions. Lilith highlights their double-layered barriers, ensuring they remain completely invisible to the nearby mortal villages. Knowing they're safe for now, the young commander finally lets out a long-overdue sigh of relief. But safety is fleeting in a world where 72 legendary demon kings battle for ultimate dominance. A terrifying pantheon of monstrous godlike sovereigns rules over this dark and chaotic fantasy world. Yet even these legendary demigods are falling victim to a ruthless, systematic execution campaign. Valiant human champions actively hunt them down, brutally slaughtering the demon kings in their own domains. With over 30% of their rulers already executed, the demonic hierarchy stands on the brink of total collapse. This brutal reality makes concealing Kairos' fortress an absolute matter of life and death. But hiding forever is not an option, and Kairos decides that the time has finally come to venture outside. Ready to make his move, the commander orders a breakdown of the 4 monster habitats bordering his territory. Lilith begins by mapping a nearby goblin camp swarming with roughly 300 hostile creatures. Further up the rocky highlands lies the brutal territory of 500 savage weapon-wielding orcs. Meanwhile, a single gargantuan ogre slumbers deeply inside a misty, cavernous forest nearby. But the final region is an ancient ruin completely shrouded in terrifying, unspoken mystery. Lilith warns that an unidentified threat looms deep within those dark woods, watching their territory. With the tactical map laid bare, the secretary asks her lord where they should launch their first military strike. Kairos pauses in deep contemplation, carefully weighing his odds against the local threats. Eyes gleaming with sudden greed, he victoriously commands an immediate assault on the goblin habitat. Lilith agrees before suddenly revealing that a lucrative system mission has just been unlocked. Conquering the goblin camp promises 2 highly coveted random reward chests as a victory prize. With visions of epic gacha pulls dancing in his head, Kairos confidently prepares for his first real campaign. Soon, the duo sneaks through the towering grass, with Batizia bitterly complaining about her humiliating demotion. Pouting aggressively, the red-haired warrior warns her rookie commander to stay out of her way. Before he can even utter a warning, she recklessly charges ahead, sprinting directly toward the enemy gates. The massive wooden watchtowers of the goblin stronghold loom dangerously ahead in the bright afternoon sun. Catching up, Kairos peers through the foliage to inspect the heavily guarded wooden perimeter. But as hordes of weapon-wielding goblins swarm the gates, Kairos realizes this battle is about to get incredibly chaotic. Sensing the impending danger, Kairos turns to his headstrong ally only to find her gone, leaving behind nothing but a comical silhouette. A blood-curdling battle cry echoes across the plains as the red-haired warrior launches her reckless pran. The sudden ferocious roar catches the local goblin guards completely off guard, freezing them in shock. Stepping boldly into the open, Batisha proudly declares her fearsome identity as a former demon sovereign, leaving Kairos completely mortified in the bushes. She aggressively commands the hostile horde to bend the knee, while her exasperated commander watches her mental breakdown in utter disbelief. To their absolute surprise, the massive wooden gates of the goblin stronghold begin to slowly creak open. Kairos watches in sheer panic from the tall grass as hundreds of heavily armed goblins begin swarming out of the camp. From the center of the horde, the imposing goblin elder draped in a heavy fur cloak steps forward with a menacing staff. The elder narrows his glowing red eyes, focusing his intense gaze directly on the intruders. Sensing the terrifying pressure, a cold sweat runs down Kairos' neck as he braces for a brutal slaughter. But instead of launching an attack, the formidable goblin chief suddenly drops straight onto his knees. Bowing his head in deep submission, the goblin elder formally pledges his tribe's total loyalty to their new masters. As the rest of the goblin horde bows in unison, Kairos is left entirely speechless by the absurdly anticlimactic turn of events. Batisa bursts into a proud, boastful laugh, completely taking credit for their effortless surrender. Still sweating from the shock, the young commander can only stare in disbelief at how ridiculously easy the conquest was. The scene shifts to a grand outdoor feast within the goblin camp, where tables groan under the weight of an unexpectedly gourmet banquet. A hand elegantly swirls a glass of rich red wine, celebrating their swift and peaceful victory. Sitting at the lavishly set table, Kairos leans over to whisper his growing suspicion that the goblins gave up far too quickly. Before he can investigate further, a jovial goblin server, eager to please, rushes over with a massive platter of fresh fruit. Dismissing his worries, Batisha proudly sips her wine, arrogantly claiming that submission is only natural in the presence of her greatness. The respectful goblin chief approaches their table to pay his respects once again. Bowing politely, the elder offers to personally guide his new lords on a grand tour of the village. Still clutching her wine glass, the red-haired former general casually orders him to lead the way. Following closely behind, Kairos scratches his head, trying to shake off his lingering anxiety about the bizarre camp. The trio walks deeper into the sprawling goblin settlement, passing by neatly constructed huts and tents. Observing the massive scale of the camp, Kairos realizes this tribe is easily a top-tier monster faction, yet they are all bowing to him. But his strategic analysis is cut short when he spots a highly suspicious barricade decorated with ominous, sharp wooden stakes. Pointing toward the strange fortifications, a curious Batisha questions the chief about the purpose of the barrier. The chief nervously laughs it off, casually mentioning they built it to subdue a rampaging ogre. Kairos freezes in absolute terror upon hearing that this supposedly weak goblin tribe successfully hunted an ogre. He recalls the brutal reality that a single monstrous ogre possesses enough raw power to easily slaughter hundreds of normal goblins. A horrifying realization flashes in the commander's eyes as he frantically screams out his ally's name. He lunges forward in pure panic, desperately screaming at her to throw away her wine glass immediately. But it is already too late, as Batizia innocently tilts her completely empty glass, indicating she drank every drop. Right on cue, the friendly facade vanishes as the armed goblin guards suddenly surround them with wicked smirks. Sensing the deadly trap, Karos frantically commands the red-haired warrior to unleash her destructive magic to wipe out the betrayers. Flashing a confident smirk, Batisha proudly raises her hand to channel her supreme magical power. But her smug grin instantly fades into a bewildered gasp when absolutely nothing happens in her open palm. Shrinking in sheer panic, she desperately tries to summon her mana, horrified to find her legendary magic has completely vanished. Karos' jaw drops in absolute shock as he realizes his own magic-nullifying passive power has completely disabled his only heavy hitter. With their targets completely defenseless, the screeching goblins leap high into the air, weapons raised for a lethal strike. Staring up at the descending horde, the powerless duo can only watch in utter terror as their easy campaign completely collapses. Sometime later, a cold droplet of water falls from the ceiling of a damp, pitch-black cavern, splashing onto a familiar head of red hair. Groaning in pain, Batisha slowly blinks her eyes open, struggling to shake off her disorientation. Her eyes widen in panic as she finds herself tightly bound in ropes, struggling desperately against her restraints. A familiar, defeated voice calls out from behind, revealing that Karos is bound back-to-back right there with her. The young commander sighs in deep exhaustion, lecturing the headstrong warrior about the consequences of her reckless pride. Nearby, a blazing bonfire illuminates the dark cave as a celebratory group of goblins dances around with sharp weapons. Watching the dancing monsters, a terrified Batija asks if they are about to be brutally beaten, to which Karos grimly agrees. Gritting her teeth in useless fury, the red-haired warrior silently curses the mysterious loss of her magical powers. As the two captives struggle in the dark, Karos deduces that simple-minded goblins couldn't have masterminded this ambush alone. The young commander realizes a far more terrifying threat. A rival demon king must be pulling the strings from the shadows. Bound tight in the cavernous gloom, Batasia demands answers, but Karos admits the suspect pool is simply too vast. Realizing their secretary cannot rescue them, Karos urges patience, leaving his fiery companion to fume in helpless frustration. Nearby, a boastful goblin gloats about defeating legendary lords, throwing the prideful former sovereign into a total fit of rage. Mocking laughter echoes through the dark tunnels as the guards leave the helpless duo alone in the dark. The stakes rise to a whole new level as the true trial of the underdog Demon King officially begins. Hours pass in the cold, damp cave, giving the prisoners ample time to contemplate their grim situation. Breaking the heavy silence, a hesitant Batija suddenly asks Karos about a painful memory from their past. She aggressively demands to know why he bullied and tormented her back during their academy days. Caught completely off guard, the young commander flatly denies ever mistreating her. Still bound at her ankles, she kicks a stone in anger, accusing him of ruining her reputation with vile gossip. He watches in utter bewilderment as her frustration boils over in her desperate chain struggles. She furiously screams at him to stop playing innocent, refusing to let him off the hook. Gritting her fangs, she reveals the devastating rumor that shattered her standing. A painful flashback reveals how she was ostracized by malicious peers after believing he was her only true friend. Shaking with deep-seated resentment, she curses him for making her suffer through her darkest days. Karos softly delivers a shocking revelation, claiming he has absolutely no idea what she is talking about. The red-haired warrior gasps in sheer disbelief at his complete denial. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in the commander's head as a brilliant smirk spreads across his face. Before he can explain, the goblin elder enters the cavern, demanding that the commander be brought forward immediately. A goblin guard unties the ropes, transferring Karos into heavy metal chains. Batija protests her exclusion, but the goblin mockingly reveals they are only obeying their master's command. Led away from his companion, Karos is escorted deep into the swamp to a hidden, magical cottage. Forced inside, the captive commander is brought directly before a mystical glowing crystal ball. A familiar mocking voice echoes from the shimmering purple depths of the magic orb. Karos smiles warmly, instantly identifying the mastermind behind his capture as the rival demon king Borkania. The crystal ball shifts to reveal the elegant silhouette of the shadowy purple-haired conspirator. The notorious demon king of treachery and deceit finally makes her grand entrance from her distant throne. Amused by his quick deduction, the cunning ruler asks how he managed to expose her scheme so easily. Unfazed by his chains, Karos gets straight to the point, demanding to know her true motive. The purple-haired sovereign minimizes her demands with a chillingly casual response. Baring her sharp fangs, she demands that Karos hand over Batesia to her custody. Karos gasps in surprise, realizing his hot-headed ally is the true target of this entire elaborate trap. Borkania reveals her ultimate objective to use Batesia to destroy her rival, the mighty demon king Sotracross. She explains that the powerful ruler Sotracross is threatening her domain, making this a matter of survival. Acknowledging her foe's overwhelming might, she claims that an alliance with Batesia is her only path to victory. She praises Betija's legendary strength and unwavering loyalty as the missing pieces to her puzzle. Keros notes that while his companion has lost her raw power, her vast political influence remains a potent weapon. Orkinia warns that if her plan fails, Betija's former territory will be completely annihilated. She describes a bleak future where Betija is abandoned by her closest allies, left completely isolated. The devious schemer offers Keros an army of monsters if he simply betrays his subordinate. She tempts him further, promising that a weakened Betija will submit to his rule forever. The young commander laughs softly, seemingly preparing to give his final answer. But with a cold glare, Keros utterly shatters her expectations by rejecting her deal. Furious and bewildered, the deceitful queen demands to know why he would pass up such an easy bargain. Smiling defiantly, Keros declares his absolute ironclad rule to protect his subordinates at all costs. He probably states he will achieve victory through his own strength rather than backstabbing his friends. He confronts the scheming queen about spreading the vile rumors that ruined Betija's academy days. Keros exposes the final dark layer of her plot. She was the one who framed him to tear their alliance apart from the start. Shadows from a painful academy memory loom over the red-haired warrior as her hidden past with the young commander begins to resurface. Dismissing the sentimental talk, the purple-haired queen abruptly shifts the conversation back to their current deadly game. The crystal ball erupts with violent dark magic as the ruthless queen condemns the commander to a swift execution. Deep in the cave, the sneaky goblin chief prepares to strike as Keros senses another presence lurking in the dark. Chained and helpless, Keros listens as the queen's cold voice commands the goblin to execute him immediately. With murderous red eyes and a massive blade, the goblin chief happily accepts the order to slaughter his target. Facing certain death, a confident and dangerous smirk spreads across the young commander's face. The captive commander mockingly points out a critical flaw that his rival completely overlooked in her plan. With a violent surge of strength, the black-haired commander shatters his heavy metal chains to pieces. Summoning a secret weapon, Keros demands his lazy slime familiars awaken as a vibrant green creature manifests in his palm. A colorful swarm of slimes launches forward at high speed, striking the terrified goblin chief from all directions. A brief flashback reveals his secretary explaining that these small, seemingly useless slimes possess a unique volume reduction ability. Intrigued by the explanation, the young commander tries to store the condensed slimes inside his coat pockets. The experiment goes hilariously wrong as the energetic slimes burst out of his pockets and cover his chest. The embarrassed commander can only hide his face in exhaustion at his clumsy familiars. Back in the present, he reaches inside his leather vest pocket to retrieve his hidden arsenal. Checking his small leather pouch, he confirms the condensed slimes are perfectly prepared for action. The real battle begins as the underdog's secret counteroffensive swings into motion. The giant green slime wraps tightly around the goblin chief's head as Keros laughs at his struggle. Crying and suffocating under the slime, the terrified goblin chief begs for mercy and pledges complete loyalty. Watching through the magic orb, the enraged queen screams in fury, threatening to kill the traitorous chief for his weakness. Keros mockingly points out that forced relationships are fragile, while the queen counters that she still controls the goblin army. The smug commander confidently asks if things will really go according to her plan. Gritting her teeth, the furious purple-haired sovereign screams a desperate command to eliminate both Keros and the chief. As the armed goblin guards hesitate, Keros walks forward, calmly explaining that goblins only follow the orders of their chief. He steps forward, confidently pointing out that the village chief is now firmly under his complete control. The commander smugly turns back to the trapped chief, prompting him to confirm who the tribe must obey. Sweating profusely under the weight of the colorful slimes, the old goblin nods in absolute submission. Keros orders the chief to lead him to the antidote, leaving the silent, seething queen to bite her lip in frustration. Shattering her useless magic orb in a violent fit of rage, the scene shifts deep into the cold caves. Trapped in the quiet darkness of the cavern, the powerless red-haired warrior sits alone in her bonds. Looking down in deep sorrow, she quietly wonders if the commander has already been killed. A bright flashback triggers a painful memory of empty promises made long ago. Tears stream down her face as she bitterly smiles, recalling a betrayal that still burns inside her. The tragic memory transports her back to Pantania, her impoverished sandy homeland. She remembers the dusty, stone-walled streets of her harsh childhood environment. Her mind wanders back to the desolate slum notorious for harboring outcasts and beggars. Born to a mother struggling to survive in the slums, she recalls the brutal reality of her youth. She remembers how her mother endured daily abuse just to make ends meet in the harsh city. Despite their absolute poverty, they shared moments of pure, warm affection over simple meals. In those fleeting moments of quiet comfort, she felt happier than anyone else in the world. Years passed and she grew into a young woman wearing a simple dirty white dress. Returning home one evening, she happily calls out to her mother as she opens the drawer. Her smile instantly vanishes, replaced by absolute horror at what lies inside. At the end of the dark corridor, she witnesses a gang of brutal thugs savagely beating her mother. Crawling through the blood, she collapses over the lifeless body of her beloved mother. Before she can even mourn, the cruel thugs loom over her on the cold floor. The monsters grin wickedly, discussing what they will do to her before selling her into slavery. They laugh sinisterly as they grab her, sealing her terrible fate. In that moment of absolute despair, her long journey of survival and hatred officially began. In a flash of lightning, her ultimate destiny is forged in tears. Her raw, untapped magic explodes outward in a colossal destructive shockwave. Left standing amidst the smoking ruins, her lonely path of survival begins. High society whispers of a legendary magical power born once every decade. She is formally adopted and given a brand new noble name. Her wealthy guardians welcome her into their elite high-class world. She arrives at the prestigious academy, drawing gazes from everyone. Fake friends quickly crowd around to flatter the new noble girl. She realizes their attitudes only change because of her family's prestigious title. The self-made commoner boy catches her attention from across the classroom. Their constant bickering sparks a peculiar, unexpected bond between them. She truly believed they had become genuine, lifelong friends. But that fragile illusion of trust was soon shattered to pieces. Malicious rumors spread like wildfire, exposing her secret slum upbringing. Trapped in a dark world of isolation, her despair begins to mutate. A sudden aggressive confrontation completely derails her remaining peace. Her purple-haired classmate reveals that Karos is the one spreading the rumors. The red-haired girl stands frozen as her heart completely breaks. Furious and betrayed, she immediately demands answers from her only friend. With a wicked smirk, he heartlessly admits to ruining her life. Back in the present, she welcomes her bitter end with a grin. Bound in the dark cave, she screams for a swift execution. Instead of a blade, a mysterious pink antidote rolls to her feet. She gasps in utter shock to see Karos dominating her captor. The young commander steps forward to untie his bound companion. He reveals the shocking truth that the purple-haired queen framed him. She stands in stunned silence as the massive misunderstanding finally unravels. A heavy tear splashes onto the potion bottle, breaking her emotional dam. Years of deep-seated hatred melt away into overwhelming tearful regret. Karos gently offers his hand, inviting her to return to his castle. High above a magically shielded sanctuary, a majestic eagle soars in peace. Back home, the young commander collapses lazily into his luxurious armchair. His loyal black-haired secretary warmly welcomes him back from his mission. She questions his choice to bring the terrified goblin chief along. He confidently explains his master plan to utilize the entire goblin tribe. He instructs his secretary to accommodate their new monster subordinate. Exhausted from the journey, the young commander drifts off to sleep. Suddenly, a hesitant Beitija enters the room, requesting a serious conversation. They step out onto the castle terrace to discuss their painful past. She names her true betrayer, the deceptive purple-haired queen. The memory of her false friend's sweet smiles now tastes like poison. Overwhelmed by guilt, she bows deeply and begs for his forgiveness. She solemnly pledges her absolute, eternal loyalty to her true commander. She formally initiates the ancient pledge ritual of a demon king's subordinate. Kneeling before him, her devotion to his cause is officially sealed. Karos finds her sudden obedience unsettling, yet he accepts her pledge. A warm, genuine smile of relief washes over her face. His companions gather to ask about their next major strategic move. Taking a slow, calm sip of tea, he prepares to speak. He confronts the small demon Lilith about her promised special ability. A legendary alliance has just been restored, but a dark secret is about to change everything as the secretary delivers a shocking warning. Demanding the absolute truth, the fearless commander steps forward as his tiny slime familiars tremble in anticipation. Raising her gloved hand, the loyal secretary unleashes a massive, swirling vortex of crackling dark magic. With a swift motion, she tears open a glowing dimensional rift, leaving her master completely speechless. The secretary elegantly invites her lord to step through the massive sparking purple portal she just manifested. Stepping forward, the young commander's eyes widen in sheer shock as he realizes she has summoned an actual subspace. Walking into the endless neon pink realm, he criticizes its tacky design while questioning its true purpose. Sweeping her arm across the glowing space, she politely directs her master's attention deeper into the magical vault. High above, a colossal digital display showing the number 3222 leaves him completely baffled. Turning around, they approach a mysterious glowing pedestal holding a single metallic container in the center of the room. Intrigued by the strange technology, the black-haired commander carefully lifts the heavy box to inspect it. The secretary explains these draw boxes are purchased with scoreboard points, prompting him to note the 100-point cost. Looking around at the empty room, the commander realizes that almost all of the other pedestals are completely barren. She explains that the Great Demon King promised to gradually fill them as their journey grows more interesting. He quickly calculates their score, realizing they have just enough points to purchase 32 boxes. Unwilling to wait, the confident commander decides to spend all his points and buy every single box available. Back in the castle, he happily orders his companions to open the massive mountain of acquired boxes. Holding the first white cube, he braces himself for whatever incredible treasure might lie inside. A blinding golden radiance suddenly explodes from the container, illuminating the entire royal hall. The intense golden glare is so powerful that it forces the young leader to shield his eyes in discomfort. Squinting through the brilliant light, he looks down in sheer amazement at their very first legendary pull. A rare, glowing golden crystal known as Divine Orb Brian materializes before him. But Tisha warns that this ancient, highly lethal mineral can inflict deadly wounds with just a single touch. Intrigued by its dangerous nature, he holds the crystal as she explains its incredible power. Sealing the dangerous ore away, he orders the remaining boxes to be popped open all at once. His excitement quickly deflates as a pile of useless, rusty weapons and scrap paper is revealed. The old sword instantly crumbles into ash in Batisha's hand, proving to be completely worthless junk. The secretary calmly informs him that only 2 boxes remain from their massive haul. The trio leans over the next box, bracing themselves for whatever disappointment awaits inside. They recoil in pure disgust at a moldy, foul-smelling rotten tangerine emitting toxic green fumes. Lilith mockingly calls the prize absolute garbage as the defeated commander wallows in despair. The mischievous succubus suddenly pulls a shimmering blue crystal necklace from the final container. She proudly reveals that the glowing blue crystal is a rare magic-nullifying accessory. Batisha puts it on, amazed to find that her overwhelming magical power is completely suppressed. Karas realizes that securing both the magical nullifier and the divine ore made the gacha haul quite a success. As he turns to clean up, his childish subordinates immediately start bickering over the empty boxes. The secretary suddenly stops him, pointing toward a massive brown sack left on the floor. To their absolute shock, opening the final discarded sack reveals stacks of human world currency. The secretary quietly admits she wants to use the cash to buy fresh in-season apples. With a relaxed shrug, the generous commander happily grants her permission to spend the cash. He notes that he already planned to visit a human territory to scout out their very first target. Arriving at the destination, the commander crouches low within the dense, towering grass to stay hidden. His stealth mission is instantly ruined when he catches his persistent companions tailing him yet again. Batisha insists that a magic-suppressed demon king needs a strong bodyguard to protect him from danger. Turning to the tiny demon, the commander sighs and questions why she had to tag along too. Lilith playfully explains that she can easily blend in by hiding her demonic horns and wings. Defeated by their persistence, the commander reluctantly allows them to join, warning them to stay quiet. Cheering in celebration, the girls follow their leader as they march toward the massive human fortress. Creeping closer to the stone gate, they analyze the guard presence from the safety of the brush. To avoid drawing unwanted attention, the commander hands them human disguises to begin their infiltration. Pulling his gray hood low, the black-haired commander prepares to enter human lands in deep disguise. High above, a massive stone bridge stretches across a lush green forest canopy. The black-haired commander urges his tiny companion to hide the conspicuous green creature atop her head. The twin-tailed succubus explains that her slime companions are feeling too cramped inside her hood. Hiding amidst the tall, dense grass, the red-haired girl watches them bicker in silence. Her expression grows tense as she braces herself for the upcoming infiltration. The tiny demon excitedly announces that they have finally reached their destination. A colossal, imposing stone gate looms over them as they approach the human settlement. An armored guard immediately halts them, demanding to know their business in the territory. The black-haired commander puts on a friendly smile, claiming they are merely exhausted travelers seeking rest. Unconvinced, the guard raises his spear and demands to see their official identification. Before their cover is blown, the red-haired companion steps forward to offer her own version of an ID. Unleashing a swirling vortex of dark energy, she targets the unsuspecting guard. The guard's eyes instantly glaze over with a hypnotic purple hue as the mind control magic takes hold. Thoroughly brainwashed, the guard lowers his weapon and politely welcomes the group inside. The group easily slips past the gates, though the red-haired girl questions how it was so simple. Walking into the bustling marketplace, the small demon marvels at how massive and spacious the city is. The commander carefully studies his surroundings, noting that the overall public sentiment feels incredibly heavy. Turning to him, the red-haired girl curiously questions how he can read the crowd so easily. He points to the food stalls, noting that despite the plentiful harvest, something is deeply wrong. He explains that while the children seem joyful, the adult vendors look exhausted and grim. She listens quietly, realizing her leader's keen observational skills are sharper than they appear. Suddenly, a young pickpocket in a white tank top collides with the tiny demon girl. The startled boy immediately panics as he realizes he has run into a group of strangers. Furious at the rude encounter, the red-haired girl gets ready to unleash her wrath on the child. The commander quickly grabs her arm, telling her to let the young boy go. He gently dismisses the trembling kid, allowing him to escape without further trouble. The red-haired girl angrily protests his leniency, but the commander urges her to control her fiery temper. Interrupting their bickering, the energetic small demon points him toward a nearby fruit vendor. Walking down the narrow stone alley, they spot the merchant standing behind his wooden cart. The commander strictly warns his companions to keep their mouths shut no matter what he says to the locals. The tiny demon enthusiastically agrees while the red-haired girl remains utterly annoyed. They make their way toward the vendor, blending seamlessly into the city's long shadows. Bins filled with beautifully ripened red and green apples set on display at the front of the cart. Handing over some cash, the commander casually asks the vendor why the city's atmosphere feels so tense. The bearded merchant instantly freezes, looking around warily to ensure no one is listening. Leaning in close, the vendor whispers that the heavy tension is entirely due to their ruler. He describes the new lord as an arrogant noble obsessed with hoard to cool. He further reveals dark rumors of a lady who has been secretly imprisoned inside the castle. When the commander questions the motive, the vendor admits that the two never got along. Taking his bag of apples, the commander realizes this local mystery is definitely worth investigating. Turning to his small companion, he asks her to hand over their remaining money pouch. The red-haired girl is shocked to discover that the pickpocket boy from earlier stole it right off her. They stand in absolute comical silence as they realize they have been completely robbed. Far away in the dark alleys, the young pickpocket runs for his life, gasping for breath. A massive, tattooed thug blocks his path, demanding to see his haul for the day. The boy hesitantly walks down the narrow stone alley, clutching the stolen leather pouch tight. With a sinister grin, the hulking thug snatches the bag away from the trembling child. The thug opens the pouch to find it completely stuffed with thick stacks of human currency. Watching them count the massive stash, the young boy sighs in relief, glad he won't be beaten today. The scarred thug violently grabs the boy's head, threatening him. The thug orders the boy to return to the travelers to steal more money as his partner counts the cash. The pickpocket boy gasps in utter confusion and terror. Realizing their targets are wealthy, the scarred thug demands the boy go back and beg or cry to get every coin. The thug threatens the boy with violence if he fails to secure more cash. The terrified boy suddenly notices a strange, foul odor in the alleyway. Startled by a sudden voice, the thugs spin around in confusion and shock. Beitisha steps out of the shadows, revealing herself with a confident smile. The scene shifts briefly as the journey supporters are acknowledged. Confronting the thugs, the three disguised companions block the narrow alley exit. The scarred thug arrogantly mocks Betasia, completely unaware of the danger she poses. Unleashing her wrath, Betasia summons a terrifying wave of purple lightning magic. Crackling dark magic surges directly into the arrogant thug. The massive thug is instantly blasted backward, crashing hard onto the stone floor. Betasia coldly dismisses the fallen thug as both foolish and lustful. Turning to the boy, Betasia demands he return the stolen pouch of money immediately. A heavily tattooed mob leader and his gang step forward to defend their territory. The thugs grin maliciously as they prepare to attack the intruders. The massive gang quickly surrounds the three disguised companions in the tight alley. Karo sighs at the annoyance, but Betasia assures them they won't have to tolerate it for long. The green slime resting on Lilith's head suddenly prepares to strike. Lilith's slimes launch themselves forward, flying straight at the unsuspecting thugs. The sticky slimes latch onto the thugs' faces, causing them to scream in panic. Karos grumbles about losing his chance to fight, while Betasia notes their slimes were merely frustrated. The helpful green slime happily delivers the stolen money pouch back to Karos's feet. Seeing the chaos, the pickpocket boy quietly attempts to sneak away. A firm hand suddenly grabs the boy's shoulder, stopping his escape as he screams for help. Karos peers down at the trembling child, letting out a smug hum. Karos demands to know if the boy has any connections or acquaintances in the city. Terrified and shaking, the boy stammers blindly in fear. Upon learning the boy is an orphan with no family, Karos smiles with sinister satisfaction. Karos orders his companions to bring the boy to the castle for medical treatment, shocking Betasia. Karos promises the boy hot food and a warm bed, leaving the child hopeful. In exchange for shelter, Karos offers the boy a life-changing deal. Karos extends his open hand, offering the child a path forward. Desperate for a better life, the boy eagerly reaches out to accept the proposal. A blinding golden contract magic erupts as their hands lock together. The overwhelming magical force causes the boy to collapse unconscious onto the floor. Escorted back, the village chief carries the boy to the castle while delivering urgent news. The panicked goblin chief begs for help, weeping that giant ogres have awakened to devour them. Deep inside a dense forest, Karos complains about the annoyance while Betasia urges him forward. Betasia questions why Karos spared the human child instead of eliminating him. Karos explains that unlike other rulers, he prefers a different, more strategic route to conquest. Projecting a miniature glowing city, he plans to destroy the empire from within using its own citizens. He notes that securing loyal human allies is the key to executing his grand plan. Betasia remains skeptical, arguing that brute force would be much simpler and faster. They finally arrive before a dark vine-covered cavern hidden deep within the woods. Meanwhile, high above the stone castle, a tense quiet looms over the stronghold. Lilith flies high in the clear blue sky, scouting the surrounding towers. Inside the treasury, bowls filled with gleaming gold rings and colorful magical crystals sparkle in the dark. High above the stronghold, Lilith spots a gleaming treasure sparkling from a high tower window. Sweeping down on her demonic wings, she swiftly swoops toward the barred stone window. Peering through the heavy iron bars, Lilith excitedly plans to present this find to the Demon King. Inside the quiet cell, a silver-haired noblewoman slowly turns to face the unexpected flying visitor. Intrigued by the strange demonic guest, the silver-haired lady questions who she is. Lilith excitedly asks if she can be seen, which the surprised prisoner quickly confirms. Utterly baffled, the succubus floats in place, wondering why her invisibility magic has failed. Fearing for the child's safety, the silver-haired lady desperately urges Lilith to escape the dangerous area. She continues to plead with the demon girl, telling her to flee as far away as possible. Lilith tilts her head in complete confusion, finding this human's behavior incredibly bizarre. Suddenly, a realization hits Lilith as she remembers her original objective. Meanwhile, back in the castle quarters, a dark-haired maid takes a crisp bite of a red apple. While Karos drinks tea, the maid asks if they took the ogre cave, and he confirms it took mere minutes. But Tasha assures her there were no complications, prompting the maid to ask when they will return to the village. Leaning over a map, Karos reveals that he must first execute a critical task. Karos points to the map, planning to let the humans destroy themselves, leaving Beta Sia curious how. With a confident grin, Karos rips the map in half, proposing a noble-led internal rebellion. The maid realizes the plan will make the coup look like a simple territorial battle. Rubbing his chin, Karos ponders where they can find a desperate noble to join their cause. Batisha recalls the vendor's rumor about a noble lady secretly locked inside the castle. She points out that if this captive lady truly exists, she could be their perfect insider. Karos smugly declares that Batisha's suggestions are all the help he needs, thoroughly annoying her. Elsewhere in the castle, the rescued pickpocket boy sleeps soundly under a warm, soft blanket. Jacob wakes up trembling as Karos towers over him, demanding his name. Seeking vital intelligence, Karos asks if Jacob knows anything about the former lord's daughter. Jacob explains her name is Irina Astria, fondly remembering her kind presence in the village. The boy's expression turns somber as he reflects on her tragic fate. Jacob explains that she was beloved by the poor villagers for her exceptionally generous heart. His voice falters as he begins to detail how horribly things change for her. Hearing the description of silver hair and golden eyes, Lilith excitedly announces she knows this exact person. Deep in the castle's dark dungeons, an armored guard stands watch outside a reinforced iron cage. The sympathetic knight asks if Irina is all right as she trembles before a meager prison meal. Irina calmly holds her dry bread, urging the guard to simply follow the Lord's cruel orders. The devastated guard drops to his knees, lamenting the tragic downfall of their rightful lineage. Irina sorrowfully notes that as the eldest daughter with no succession rights, her sell-off is inevitable. The guard desperately warns her that her tyrannical brother is currently running rampant. Flashback reveals the arrogant new lord parading through town, abusing innocent women for his own pleasure. Feeling completely powerless, Irina grinds her teeth in silent, burning frustration. The loyal guard wishes she had inherited the lordship instead, but Irina insists he leave for his safety. Reluctantly, the armored knight turns away and leaves the noble woman alone in the dark. Clenching her shackled fist, Irina grieves for the immense suffering of her beloved villagers. She desperately wishes the kingdom's laws allowed women to ascend to leadership. Suddenly, an intense, strangely pleasant magical sensation washes over her body, leaving her gasping. Irina looks up in utter shock as a swirling blue magical portal ruptures the prison air. Stepping through the vortex, a hooded Karos smiles warmly and promises her a turn of fortune. Karos offers her a fresh red apple, noting the dry bread will never satisfy her. Irina warily demands to know what a devil wants with her, and Karos praises her keen intellect. Unleashing a terrifying purple aura, Kairos proudly introduces himself as the demon king of madness and greed. The immense pressure of his demonic energy causes the shackled noblewoman to gasp in pain. Karos firmly grabs her arm, extending a sinister yet irresistible offer of ultimate revenge. Clasping hands glow with blinding golden magic as Karos tempts the imprisoned noblewoman with a mutual trade. Irina firmly rejects the offer, refusing to strike any bargain with a devil. Karos calmly reminds her that she lacks any other options to escape her tragic fate. He smiles coldly, asking what choice truly benefits her suffering people. Standing shackled in her cell, Irina watches his purple magical portal swirl around him. Back in the castle parlor, a brilliant magical light suddenly flashes from a doorway. Cloaked in purple shadow magic, Karos steps back into the safety of the room. He stretches comfortably on the sofa next to Batisha, pleased with his progress. Batisha questions the necessity of his roundabout tactics to win over the captive lady. Karos explains that establishing trust is the most critical part of forming a demon contract. Karos smiles while raising a glass of red wine, confident in his calculated diplomatic approach. Batisha sighs at his dealer-like behavior, though he considers the two concepts to be identical. Kneeling beside him on the sofa, Lilith looks up to address her master. Lilith asks with genuine concern if they plan to eliminate the captive lady. Karos gently pats Lilith's head, assuring her they will keep Irina alive to assist them. Lilith beams with pure joy, happily thanking the Demon King for his mercy. Karos smiles, realizing the valuable power and status she brings to his grand design. Deep in the dungeon, Irina stands silhouetted by the window light, oblivious to his plans. Karos resolves to make perfect use of the imprisoned noblewoman's lineage to spark rebellion. As his master plan begins, Karos unleashes a terrifying ogre near the village borders. Terrified villagers huddle together in dread as the beast roars by. An angry voice demands to know what is causing the widespread panic. The obese, tyrannical lord sits on his throne, furiously berating his butler for their incompetence. The lord's face contorts in pure shock upon learning that an ogre has appeared. A system notification describes the devastating power of ogres to shatter defenses and gates. Sweating with anxiety, the lord asks why such a beast is targeting their village. He screams in rage upon hearing that no guards have been sent to handle it. The butler warns that a search party would surely perish against such a threat. An oppressive pressure looms over the butler as the Lord orders the threat silenced. Shaking with fear, the guards listen to their ruler's callous indifference to their lives. The tyrant demands a search party capture the ogre while others defend the stronghold. The loyal butler reluctantly bows, accepting the suicidal command. The terrifying beast stands over the slaughtered remains of the dispatched search party. The butler consoles a weeping mother beside the sheet-covered body of his own son. Outraged villagers wave tools and weapons, demanding rebellion against their uncaring lord. They argue in fear that all their sons will perish under the Lord's endless demands. Jacob suddenly steps forward, loudly calling for the angry crowd to halt. The boy prepares to reveal a crucial secret to the desperate villagers. Jacob announces that the beloved noblewoman Irina is still alive inside the castle. The crowd murmurs in disbelief, questioning if the rumors are truly a lie. Hearing the rising voices of her people from her cell, Irina looks up in surprise. She reaches out her hand, desperate to answer their calls for help. Irina grips the bars, cursing the heavy chains that keep her bound. Karos' voice echoes in her mind, reminding her that her people are searching for her. Swirling dark magic envelops her as Karos offers her the contract once more. The sun shines brightly over the stone stronghold the following morgue. A lavish feast of roasted meat and fruits is laid out on a grand table. Lilith stares at the delicious food with sparkling, hungry eyes. Charos raises his glass, inviting his companions to toast to their success. The companions clink their glasses, celebrating the conquest of their very first human outpost. A dark deal is sealed, but a sudden gift sparks unexpected tension as Batisa presents Karos with a magic necklace. Karos reacts with visible annoyance as Batisha playfully dismisses his teasing about the gift. The bizarre goblin chief celebrates wildly with a bouncing green slime perched on his head. Karos questions the chief's eccentric behavior while Batisia casually guesses the goblin is simply intoxicated. Curious about the unfolding conspiracy, Batisia asks Karos to explain the next step of his plot. Karos smiles confidently, taking a slow sip of wine as he prepares to reveal his scheme. An ominous heavy silence falls over the scene as the narrative shifts back to the fortress. High atop the castle, a single lit tower window holds the key to their entire rebellion. Karos confronts the imprisoned Irina, demanding to know if she is finally ready to sign their contract. Driven by her desperate desire to save her people, Irina firmly accepts his demonic proposition. Their hands lock in a tight clasp, sealing a dangerous alliance that will reshape the kingdom. Irina stares ahead with fierce determination, pledging her absolute loyalty to the Demon King. Bound by the powerful new contract, her heavy iron shackles instantly shatter into pieces. Irina steps freely from her cell, leaving the knockout guards unconscious on the dungeon floor. The newly freed noblewoman sprints swiftly across the stone ramparts under the cover of night. Standing high on the castle walls, Irina passionately rallies her people to overthrow the tyrannical lord. The crowd below gasps in sheer shock, recognizing their beloved noblewoman's return. Pointing down at the cheering crowd, Irina fiercely urges them to reclaim their village and choose a new ruler. The maid's eyes sparkle with absolute adoration as she marvels at the brilliant success of the plan. Karos basks in his triumph while Lilith looks upon her master with pure devotion. Batasia questions the legality of a female lord, prompting Karos to explain the kingdom's complex political laws. Karos reveals that the current emperor secured his throne through a ruthless, calculated usurpation. He explains that this coup forced the usurper to draft a new law permitting female succession. The maid enthusiastically praises his strategic genius, though Karos admits the entire scenario was carefully orchestrated. Suddenly, a massive spike of hostile energy cuts through the air, freezing Batasia in absolute shock. Batasia abruptly stands up from the banquet table, prompting a concerned inquiry from Karos. A sudden sharp disturbance outside shatters the peaceful atmosphere of the castle parlor. Karos calls out in surprise as Batasia sprints from the room to investigate the threat. Outside the stronghold, Batasia is confronted by a formidable warrior clad in brilliant golden armor. Scowling in anger, Batasia fiercely demands to know the identity of the powerful human intruder. The blonde knight calmly assesses her opponent, noting the demon's impressive reservoir of energy. The golden-clad warrior raises her sword, unleashing a blinding circle of radiant holy magic. Sensing the imminent danger, Karos shouts a desperate warning for everyone to dodge. A devastating torrent of golden light erupts, vaporizing everything in its path with holy fury. Batasia desperately deploys her demonic shield to block the overwhelming solar blast. The blinding intensity of the explosion forces Karos to shield his eyes in sheer disbelief. The warrior proudly introduces herself as Sinclair Secreat, a holy hero destined to slay the Demon King. Realizing the immense power of her opponent, Batasia grit her teeth in frustration, knowing she cannot win alone. Batasia gasps in shock as a sudden blur of motion streaks past her defenses. Cursing under her breath, Batasia struggles to react to the hero's terrifying superhuman speed. Sinclair instantly closes the distance, trapping the startled Karos inside a dome of radiant golden light. Karos panics, desperately wondering how a hero of the sun god managed to infiltrate their stronghold. Sinclair looks down with a confident, smug grin, believing she has cornered her ultimate prey. Facing certain doom, Karos curses his luck, fearing this is the end of his journey. Sinclair suddenly pauses, staring in confusion as she senses something unexpected about her target. Kairos realizes with immense relief that the magic necklace is masking his demonic aura, making him appear completely human. Unaware of his true identity, the hero raises her blazing sword, declaring her holy mission to bring peace. Sweating under the immense heat, Kairos desperately searches for a way to survive the imminent strike. He frantically racks his brain for a solution as the entire tower begins to collapse under the hero's divine power. With the castle crumbling around him, the Demon King prepares a high-stakes gamble to survive the hero's wrath. Caught in a desperate gamble, the disguised Demon King struggles to maintain his human facade as the hero's divine energy surges around him. Feigning extreme weakness, he desperately cries out for help to keep his cover intact. He masterfully plays the victim, blaming the sudden collapse on a malicious demonic curse. The crumbling stronghold collapses around them, sealing their fate in the chaos. Sensing his apparent distress, the heroic Sinclair catches the breathless youth in her arms. He continues his dramatic act, gasping for air to sell his fragile human facade. The intense purification magic of a mere touch from the hero sends excruciating shocks through his true demonic core. Gasping for breath, he begs her to carry him away from the battlefield and toward the village. Swallowing the bait, the noble hero commands him to hold on tight as she prepares to move. With a blinding flash of radiant light, they vanish from the ruined battlefield in an instant. A desperate cry echoes over the empty stronghold, mourning the sudden disappearance of the Demon King. Believing the absolute worst has happened, Batija weeps bitterly for her lost master. The loyal maid gently consoles the devastated demon, urging her to have faith in the Demon King's cunning survival skills. Groaning in discomfort, Carol slowly blinks open his eyes, finding himself in an unfamiliar, peaceful setting. Sitting up in a luxurious bed, he lets out a sigh of relief upon realizing his high-stakes gamble actually worked. Looking around the elegantly decorated feminine chambers, he wonders if he has ended up in the hero's private quarters. Knowing his cover could blow at any second, he decides he must escape immediately. Slipping through the doors, he is frozen in shock to find the hero and his newly contracted ally sharing a quiet tea. Sinclair warmly welcomes him back to the waking world, unaware of the predator standing right before her. Panic surges through his mind as he desperately tries to comprehend how his demonic partner and the hero became tea companions. Irina casually questions the hero about the mysterious human she rescued, acting completely oblivious to his true identity. Irina internally rages at the absurdity of the situation while Kairos desperately signals her to remain quiet. Smiling warmly, Sinclair turns to the disguised king and asks for his name. Sweat bead dripping, he quickly stammered out a fake identity to maintain his elaborate ruse. Sinclair accepts the alias and gently inquires about the circumstances behind his capture. Recognizing this critical juncture, he carefully prepares a flawless cover story, determined not to slip up. He begins spinning a tragic tale of being a simple world-traveling adventurer with a group of companions. He describes how his party accidentally stumbled upon a strange, shrouded settlement during their travels. He dramatizes their fatal clash with the terrifying Demon King, faking overwhelming grief over his lost friends. He subtly peeks to gauge the hero's reaction, hoping his tragic story successfully fooled her. Overwhelmed by sudden guilt, Sinclair bows deeply in a dramatic, heartfelt apology for failing to save his comrades. The emotional hero weeps hysterically over her perceived failure while a highly bewildered Kairos desperately tries to comfort her. Flabbergasted by her bizarrely dramatic personality, he quickly realizes he can exploit this emotional vulnerability to his advantage. Sinclair proudly rises, offering to grant any wish he desires as penance for her delay. Playing along with the charade, Irina adds her support as the local lord, encouraging him to state his request. Stroking his chin thoughtfully, the cunning Demon King carefully calculates his next strategic move. Though relieved to have survived, he notes with caution that the hero is already dangerously aware of his castle's location. He resolves that his main priority must be leading the hero as far away from his royal domain as possible. In a brilliant display of acting, he begs the hero for the chance to personally train and avenge his fallen friends. Sinclair's eyes light up with pure admiration at his fierce, unyielding warrior spirit. He plays along with synthetic excitement, eagerly waiting for her official confirmation. Sinclair brandishes her radiant sword, enthusiastically declaring that she will personally supervise his intense training regime. Stunned by the unexpected turn of events, the Demon King is left completely speechless. Forcing a strained smile, he begins to realize he might have bitten off far more than he can chew. He marvels at the hero's formidable instincts, noting how she sensed trace demonic energy despite his protective necklace. Mistaking the lingering demonic aura for a curse, the hero insists he must undergo brutal training to purify himself. She enthusiastically proposes taking him directly to the sacred sun god's temple, much to his horror. He internally panics, desperately wondering how his simple escape plan spiraled into an escort mission to a holy sanctuary. Leaving his ruined stronghold behind, the disguised Demon King begins a high-stakes journey straight into the heart of holy territory. Gasping for breath under the exhausting regime, the disguised Demon King prepares for the ultimate survival test inside enemy lines. Sinclair cheerfully reveals 16 grueling days of training remain, instantly shattering the exhausted Demon King's hopes of a quick escape. Enduring Sinclair's chaotic regime pushes the disguised king's physical limits to the absolute brink. Bean warily notes the hero's intense divine energy, thankful his half-human nature conceals his true demonic core. Sensing his profound exhaustion, Sinclair kindly offers to find some food for her weary companion. Sinclair enthusiastically brews a suspicious glowing green tonic, leaving Baron desperately scheming his escape from her bizarre hospitality. Caught in this training nightmare, the desperate Demon King yearns for his loyal general's assistance. The unlikely duo finally reaches the edge of a massive towering cliff overlook. Noticing Bean's rapidly deteriorating health, the compassionate hero decides they should rest for the day. Below them lies a grand human village dedicated entirely to the worship of the sun god. Bean secretly rejoices, realizing this crowded human settlement is the perfect place to slip away unnoticed. Upon entering the village, they are greeted warmly by a dignified local man. Sinclair cordially greets the man, identifying him as the respected village chief. The hero devoutly credits the guiding hand of the sun god for their timely arrival. The curious chief shifts his attention to the quiet cloaked traveler standing behind them. Sinclair explains her temporary guardianship over Bean, announcing her plan to escort him to the sacred temple tomorrow. The chief reacts with sudden, subtle concern upon learning Bean is not affiliated with the holy temple. Sinclair instructs the chief to arrange a comfortable room for her guest's immediate stay. The polite chief guides him deeper into the exceptionally clean streets of the village. As they walk, Ben quietly observes his surroundings with growing suspicion. The settlement appears remarkably peaceful, but something about the serene atmosphere feels deeply unnatural. The sheer perfection of the ordinary streets only heightens the disguised king's wariness. Touching a merchant stall, Ben notes the total absence of dust or signs of daily wear. He realizes this entire village feels like an artificial stage built for a very specific purpose. A sinister smirk plays on his lips as he prepares to uncover the town's secrets. Safe inside his private quarters, Bean happily relishes the long-awaited comfort of a soft bed. A polite knock at the door interrupts his rare moment of pure relaxation. The hospitable village chief enters the room bringing a hot bowl of freshly prepared soup. The chief graciously serves the meal, ensuring the traveler is well taken care of. Bean takes a relieved breath, glad to find a normal human meal instead of Sinclair's toxic creations. The chief warmly expresses his gratitude to the traveler for journeying to their distant town. Bean politely returns the thanks, assuring the host that the hospitality has restored his energy. The chief passionately praises Sinclair, highlighting her unmatched strength and noble heart. Suddenly, the chief's tone shifts as he presents a mysterious proposal to the young traveler. He warns Bean that the unpredictable hero might suddenly turn violent and strike him down without warning. Leaning close, the chief prepares to seal his bargain with an alluring bribe. The chief offers Bean a massive stack of cold hard cash to quietly pack up and leave immediately. The disguised Demon King is thoroughly amused by this unexpected turn of events. Bean smoothly declines the bribe, declaring that a true adventurer always prioritizes high-risk thrills over simple safety. Stunned by the rejection, the chief's warm facade completely shatters into a cold, menacing threat. The furious chief storms out of the chamber, leaving behind an ominous chill in the air. Night falls over the quiet town, only for the silence to be shattered by a frantic shout. The chief bursts into the dining room, desperately reporting a sudden crisis to the dining hero. He frantically reveals that bloodthirsty bandits have launched a sudden raid on the peaceful town. Sinclair confidently rises to the occasion, proudly vowing to protect every innocent citizen from harm. The relieved villagers shower the brave hero with immense praise as she marches out to face the threat. Bean watches from the window, highly skeptical that any ordinary bandit would dare raid a town so close to the holy temple. He knows for a fact that such a reckless act would be absolute suicide for typical human thieves. A sudden realization strikes the sharp-witted Demon King like a bolt of lightning. Putting all the bizarre clues together, Bean uncovers the sinister truth behind this elaborate setup. Bean abruptly steps forward, halting the hero's departure to stop her from walking straight into a deadly trap. Just when all hope seems lost in the dead of night, Bean steps forward with an audacious offer that will change the fate of this holy village forever. Gazing at the flickering flames of their quiet campsite, Bean reflects on the tragic history the hero shared during their long travels. Born an orphan and raised by the very village she protects, Sinclair's tragic destiny began in the arms of a humble guardian. Groomed from childhood to wield the heavy mantle of the sun god's hero, she knew only a life of endless combat. Raised to be an unyielding shield, Sinclair was nothing more than a glorified puppet sitting on a hollow golden throne. Bathing in the holy light of the temple, the legendary hero stood as the ultimate symbol of human hope. Returning to the cold reality of the present, Bean prepares to shatter the hero's carefully constructed fairy tale once and for all. Somewhere in the dark, greedy hands count out a hefty bounty of glittering gold. Clasping his newfound fortune, the massive bald mercenary leader questions who could possibly command such a massive bounty. With a flash of greed in his eyes, the brutal commander smirks, eager to secure their wealthy future with this final easy hit. Armed with heavy axes and blades, the ruthless warband marches under the cover of night to claim their prize. Facing the threat head-on, the frantic village chief points directly at the approaching bandits, demanding justice from the hero. Sizing up his beautiful target, the arrogant leader mockingly laments the tragic fate awaiting the young hero. Sinclair's intense, unwavering gaze locks onto her enemy, burning with the righteous fury of the sun god. Screaming a bloodthirsty war cry, the colossal thug lunges forward to strike down the hero with a single lethal blow. The massive axe cuts through the air, aimed directly at Sinclair's head with terrifying raw power. The mercenary's jaw drops in utter shock as his devastating strike hits nothing but empty air. Whirling around in desperation, the baffled brute tries to track the hero who vanished right before his eyes. Sweat pouring down his face, the mercenary freezes in absolute terror as a freezing cold presence manifests right at his side. With an explosive burst of blinding divine energy, Sinclair obliterates her foe's defenses in a single devastating impact. Standing completely unfazed, the legendary warrior watches calmly as the massive thug is launched helplessly into the sky. Gravity does its brutal work as the defeated leader crashes heavily back to Earth, completely incapacitated. Watching the brief skirmish, Bean is highly impressed by the hero's terrifying physical strength and precision. The sheer force of the blow leaves the hulking brute out cold, his soul practically leaving his body. As the remaining mercenaries rush to avenge their fallen leader, Bean reassures a skeptical Sinclair that he will resolve this conflict with absolute peace. Bean steps forward with an effortless clap of his hands, demanding the undivided attention of the entire hostile mob. Facing down the armed crowd alone, Bean calmly issues a chilling ultimatum to those foolish enough to stand in his path. Pointing directly at his heavily armed companion, Bean begins listing the unmistakable radiant traits of the golden-clad hero. Realization strikes the secondary commander like a lightning bolt as he connects the dots to their target's terrifying legendary identity. With a theatrical flourish, Bedouin officially confirms the identity of the legendary warrior standing right in front of them. Pressing his advantage, Bean demands the name of the mastermind who hired them, offering a fleeting chance at survival. Dropping their weapons in terror, the entire mercenary force falls to their knees, desperately begging the legendary hero for mercy. Without hesitation, the trembling mercenary points an accusing finger directly at the stunned village chief, exposing the dirty deal. His perfect holy mask shattered, the cornered chief frantically screams out in desperate denial. Sinclair recoils in utter disbelief, vehemently refusing to accept that her beloved guardian could have orchestrated such a betrayal. Throwing his head back in a mocking laugh, Bean calls out her blind obedience to the sun god's highly biased doctrines. Desperate to save his own skin, the mercenary eagerly pulls out the concrete physical evidence of the chief's betrayal. Handed over under the moonlight, the pristine envelope bearing a crimson seal holds the undeniable proof of the conspiracy. Brandishing the damning letter, Bean systematically deconstructs how the Holy Church shamelessly exploited Sinclair's tragic origins for divine influence. Her world completely shattered, the weeping hero drops her sword and collapses, realizing her righteous crusade was a lie. Trembling in profound despair, the broken champion laments how her noble sacrifices were actually terrible sins. Standing tall over the weeping hero, Bean coldly reminds her that the world is far darker than her holy fairy tales. Grasping the glowing blue crystal around his neck, Bean prepares to strip away his human disguise entirely. With a sinister, mocking smile, the young traveler reveals that he was never the human they thought he was. Gasping in sheer shock, Sinclair's eyes widen as she detects the sudden surge of overwhelming, malevolent, demonic energy. Shivering in absolute terror, the lowly mercenaries cling to each other as the oppressive darkness suffocates the night air. The sky turns pitch black as the legendary demon king Karos unleashes his true, terrifying form before his sworn enemy. The terrified villagers and the chief scramble backward in horror, witnessing the sudden arrival of the world's greatest threat. Chuckling at their sheer stupidity, the cunning Demon King lazily twirls the mystical blue artifact in his hand. Clasping his hand around the dark purple flames, Karos prepares his next move. Will he crush the broken hero, or does he have an even darker game in mind? He thought he could control the narrative, but a terrifying reality just shattered his carefully constructed illusions. Desperately trying to regain control, the panicked village chief screams at the hero to immediately destroy the evil demon. The chief furiously demands if she has forgotten her sacred orders, leaving Sinclair trembling in a state of profound shock. Challenged as the legendary hero of the sun god, Sinclair stands completely frozen, her absolute faith in her mission utterly shattered. Enveloped in a sinister purple aura, Bean calmly explains that those who preach holy laws are often the very ones who break them. Bean directly points an accusing finger at the sweating village chief, exposing him as the true puppet master behind the tragedy. The chief breaks out in a cold sweat as Bean reveals how Sinclair was ruthlessly groomed from childhood just to be exploited. To prove his true nature, Bellin recalls his mercy in releasing the former lord's imprisoned daughter without shedding human blood. He further highlights his benevolence, reminding everyone that he chose to spare the lives of the defeated mercenaries. Leaving the ultimate decision to her, Bean challenges Sinclair to finally choose her own path instead of blindly obeying others. Sinclair mentally revisits her childhood training, remembering how the Pope drilled the absolute necessity of eradicating all demons into her mind. As the illusion of her righteous crusade violently shatters, her entire world of faith collapses into cold, dark fragments. Overwhelmed by the agonizing weight of betrayal, the weeping hero clutches her head, completely lost on what action to take next. Suddenly, a thunderous command echoes through the night, cutting directly through Sinclair's emotional turmoil. Out of the darkness, a heavily armed squadron of holy paladins suddenly charges forward to surround him. A paladin levels his spear directly at Bane, demanding his immediate surrender after detecting the massive surge of demonic energy. Flashing a highly relaxed, confident smile, Bane calmly accepts his capture without offering even a shred of resistance. Misunderstanding the entire situation, the cheering paladins highly praise Sinclair for successfully capturing the legendary Demon King. The scene transitions to the Grand Cathedral under the bright light of a new day, setting the stage for a public spectacle. Bound securely to an execution stake, Bean stands completely unfazed as paladins prepare to burn him alive before the public. Standing proudly before the massive crowd, the Pope raises a silver chalice, demanding the demon's death for the glory of the sun god. The assembled paladins raise their cups in unison, loudly cheering to the triumph of their deity. The arrogant Pope takes a deep drink from his golden cup, savoring what he believes is his ultimate triumph over evil. Laughing to himself, Bion mockingly remarks on how much humans love these tedious, over-the-top public spectacles. A senior priest announces that the formal execution of the Demon King will commence immediately following the hero's final oath. Clutching a massive sacred tome, Sinclair slowly ascends the grand marble staircase to perform her final duty. Looking down at the open pages, Sinclair prepares to read the sacred words that have bound her life for so long. Standing before the blazing sun, she begins reciting her solemn vow as the ultimate protector of humanity. Her voice echoes across the courtyard as she swears an oath to eradicate every single demon from the face of the earth. Watching her from above, the smug Pope smiles warmly, eagerly waiting for his perfect puppet to seal the deal. On the ground below, a paladin prepares to drop his torch onto the dry wood surrounding the tied-up traveler. Searing orange flames erupt at Bean's feet as the kindling is set ablaze, kicking off the execution process. Mid-oath, Sinclair suddenly stops, deeply questioning the true meaning of the title she has carried her entire life. Shattering the tense silence, Sinclair boldly demands to know if the church is truly righteous and if the Demon King is actually evil. She directly challenges the entire foundation of their holy order, demanding to know if their crusade is nothing but a lie. Utterly blindsided by her unexpected defiance, the Pope's warm smile completely vanishes into a look of pure confusion. Her resolve hardening, Sinclair hesitates for only a brief second before choosing to defy her sacred programming. Declaring that she no longer knows what is right, Sinclair lets her sacred book fall uselessly to the stone floor. A collective gasp of absolute horror erupts from the crowd as the sacred scripture pools on the dirty ground. Desperately trying to salvage the situation, the frantic Pope steps forward, pleading with the hero to calm down and talk. Suddenly, a massive dome of crackling golden lightning erupts over the city, triggering widespread panic and screams. Violent bolts of magical lightning strike the cathedral dome as paladins scream that the enemy is launching a surprise assault. The Pope's eyes widen in sheer terror as his grand execution ceremony descends into a chaotic war zone. Breaking directly through the magical barrier, a mysterious red-haired woman emerges to locate the Demon King Karos. Hovering in midair with crackling blue lightning, the smug red-haired woman mockingly asks the crowd if they were enjoying their little show. With an effortless wave of her hand, she unleashes a devastating slash of energy tearing through the sacred palace gardens. The furious Pope frantically commands his knights to purge the intruder, only for her to respond with an arrogant, chilling smirk. Roaring a fierce battle cry, a squadron of heavily armored paladins charges forward to engage the powerful intruder. Taunting the guards as mere dogs of the gods, she charges up an overwhelming sphere of destructive magic. Seizing the sudden chaos as her chance, Sinclair sprints down the stairs to forge her own destiny once and for all. Facing her bound companions, Sinclair is utterly stunned when Beline proposes they strike a desperate deal. Flash of a confident grin, Bane promises to guarantee everyone's absolute safety if she agrees to join his side. Bound and helpless, the captured villagers tremble in sheer dread as their lives hang in the balance. Even the heavily armored paladins shiver with terror, completely paralyzed by the overwhelming pressure of the situation. Grimacing in heavy conflict, the gold-clad hero listens as Bean urges her to see this as a righteous rescue. Her faith shattered, Sinclair bitterly accuses Bean of deceiving her as she turns her back to walk away. Unfazed, Bean cheekily reminds her of his true demonic nature, daring her to make her next move. With cold fury igniting in her eyes, Sinclair declares that none of his games matter anymore. Drawing her sword with a powerful strike, the gold-clad warrior slices the heavy ropes binding Bean free. In a blur of speed, a mysterious red-haired woman sprints desperately toward the unfolding chaos. Leaping heroically into the plaza, the red-haired ally catches the knights completely off guard as Sinclair draws her sword. Standing tall, Sinclair points her blade directly at the royal guard, declaring she is no longer their ally. Lightening the mood, Chibi Batasia tosses a mysterious black box to Bean, offering a final chance at survival. Bean playfully sighs at relying on luck, while Batasia confidently retorts that even heroes need a bit of fortune. Holding the box aloft, Bean commands whatever dark creature is sealed inside to finally reveal itself. The scene briefly shifts to a majestic stone cathedral, a quiet moment before the looming storm. Walking through the fortress gardens, the red-haired Batasia promises her companion she will return shortly. Suddenly, a dark-haired mate stops Batasia to deliver an unexpected gift. Presenting the black box, she reveals it is a special favor from the Great Demon King. A portrait of a smirking red-haired demon details the system rules and the exceptional generosity of this gift. Grabbing the container eagerly, Chibi Batasia is thrilled to obtain such a useful tool for their journey. Back in the present, Being proudly holds open the black container, summoning the beast trapped within. The elite paladins recoil in pure, unadulterated horror as a massive shadow looms over the entire courtyard. Towering over the city, a gargantuan two-headed cyclops emerges, carrying Balin and Batasia on its broad shoulders. Bean smiles at their incredible luck as Batasia urges Sinclair to quickly climb aboard the beast. Sinclair and the freed villagers desperately scale the giant's back, eager to escape their captors. High up on the grand stairs, the furious Pope screams at his hesitant knights to stop the escape. Caught between their sacred duty and the terrifying giant, the armored knights hesitate, completely frozen in fear. Channeling her formidable magical powers, Batasia commands the space ahead of them to violently rupture open. A massive blue vortex erupts in the sky, swallowing the colossal giant and everyone riding upon it. Clinging to her exhaustion, Batasia complains that Bean is running her completely ragged with all these stunts. With an affectionate, knowing smile, Bean promises to patiently listen to all of her complaints once they are safe. Pouting dramatically, the chibi red-haired warrior lets out a fierce yell while playfully striking her smug companion. Sinclair holds on tightly to the Titan's stone-like hide, staring ahead with steel-hardened determination. As they vanish into the light, the emotional knights loudly bid their beloved hero a tearful, respectful farewell. Casting one final cold look back, Sinclair bids a final farewell to her false god and corrupt church. With a brilliant burst of magical energy, the dimensional portal begins to rapidly collapse. The swirling blue gateway completely vanishes from the sky, leaving the baffled church entirely empty-handed. Re-emerging at a grand stone fortress, the giant Titan is greeted by a silver-haired demon queen. Kero steps down with a confident smirk, proudly declaring he is not one to easily let himself be bullied. The silver-haired queen looks on in utter shock as she spots the massive crowd of humans arriving. The freed villagers cheer in absolute disbelief, celebrating their miraculous survival as the queen wonders who they are. Vowing in deep, heartfelt gratitude, the brown-haired village leader receives orders from Keros to raise them well. Placing her hand over her chest, the silver-haired demon queen softly thanks Keros for his incredible benevolence. Suddenly, a loud, high-pitched scream pierces through the peaceful courtyard of the demon lord's castle. A weeping demon girl with dark horns leaps out and fiercely hugs Keros, crying out his title. Keros gently pats her head to comfort her while the silver-haired queen watches the sweet reunion with a warm smile. Smiling brightly, the silver-haired queen officially welcomes her beloved demon king back to his rightful throne. Keros returns her smile, expressing his deep relief and joy at seeing his entire household safe and sound. Serving him tea in his lavish quarters, the queen curiously asks how he managed to locate the elusive temple. A sinister secret is exposed as a glowing blue crystal necklace reveals how the demon king's movements were constantly monitored. Sitting on her grand throne, the red-haired Batasia laments their recent streak of terrible luck. Chaos erupts in the background of the throne room while Batasia watches with complete indifference. Observing her new allies, Sinclair witnesses their warm bond and realizes what a true family feels like. Stepping forward, the gold-clad Sinclair calls out to confirm the true identity of her companion. With a confident smirk, Keros proudly confirms his legendary status as the Demon King of Greed and Madness. Sinclair reflects on her past encounters with other demon kings who only sought conflict without compromise. Defeating demonic hordes in her memory, Sinclair admits that Keros is different and decides to observe him further. Offering a warm smile, Sinclair extends her gold-armored hand in a gesture of future cooperation. Keros firmly shakes Sinclair's hand, cementing an unlikely alliance between a hero and a demon. Inner turmoil builds as Keros wonders how to handle Sinclair's immense divine power. To celebrate their newfound unity, Sinclair enthusiastically offers to cook, sparking instant panic among her allies. Smiling brightly, Sinclair proudly presents a horrific bowl of bat soup as a healthy meal. Terrified of the bizarre dish, the companions desperately flee as Sinclair eagerly chases after them. Days later, Batasia trains the human village soldiers, praising their high-grade endurance during a lightning-charged magic test. Encouraged by the high-grade results, Sinclair notes how difficult it is to raise an army alone. Sinclair declares she will train the mercenaries well to prevent any outside attacks on their territory. Radiating terrifying intensity, Sinclair draws her sword, instantly sending shivers down her subordinates' spines. Watching the chaotic training, Lilith questions Keros about what they should do with the former hero. Lilith observes Sinclair standing alone, noting she has completely abandoned the sun god and her status. Clad in a dark hood, Sinclair is labeled as a fallen hero rather than a righteous savior. The dark blade of the fallen hero rests silently, reflecting her grim new path. Kairos asks about the issues, and Lilith confirms there are indeed several complications with Sinclair's integration. Attempting to bond, Sinclair painfully squeezes Batista in a crushing shoulder hug. Batasia desperately cries out in pain, begging the overly strong hero to stay far away. Even a nearby green slime melts in absolute dread of Sinclair's overwhelming physical strength. Kairos ponders how Sinclair's divine power makes it incredibly difficult for her to get along with demons. Turning to Lilith, Kairos inquires about their remaining balance, and she confirms they have 10,032 points. The system display glows brightly, showing that Sinclair's arrival caused their point total to skyrocket. Lilith explains that their points increased during key milestones, such as occupying the Goblin Village. Lilith notes the massive point surge happened when Sinclair broke away from the Sun God. Kairos realizes that points are essentially scores reflecting his actions as a Demon King. With a cunning grin, Kairos realizes exactly how to proceed from here. Kairos leads Lilith away, determined to spend their points to resolve Sinclair's divine energy problem. Stepping into a swirling purple portal, Kairos admits he will never get used to this dimensional space. Inspecting the digital grid, Sinclair notes the area lacks any trace of demonic energy. Floating effortlessly, Sinclair explains she was able to enter because the system allowed her passage. A massive shadow of the Great Demon King looms as he mockingly asks if Kairos messed up again. Curious about his unique power, Sinclair asks Kairos if his special ability is summoning. Batisha bursts into laughter, revealing that the legendary Demon King's actual special ability is Gacha. Standing in the digital chamber, Kairos observes two distinct mystery boxes available for purchase. Kairos learns the white box yields items while the black box unlocks monsters. Lilith explains that the newly appeared black box was a special service from the Great Demon King. Lilith reveals that unlocking new types of boxes will now cost 5,000 points. Chibikara strategizes, realizing a variety of boxes allows him to adapt to any situation. Kairos instructs Lilith to proceed with opening a brand new box. Lilith begins chanting ancient incantations over a glowing yellow magical summoning circle. The magical ritual intensifies as the companions watch Lilith complete her spell. A wooden box worth 500 points materializes, catching Kairos' attention. Lilith confirms the cost, and Kairos decides to purchase 8 boxes to test their luck. The high-stakes gamble begins right now as Kairos gathers his companions to open the mysterious items, hoping to secure a miracle. Surrounded by his allies, the young Demon King prepares to open the 8 cheap boxes he risked his hard-earned points to buy. Batasia mockingly laughs at his ridiculous luck-based powers, but Kairos quickly snaps at her to remain silent as he makes his move. Blinding golden light erupts from the first container, signaling the arrival of a mysterious reward. Instead of a legendary weapon or powerful magic, Kairos discovers a bizarre piece of paper nestled inside. In a comical moment of confusion, Kairos and Lilith closely examine the non-magical scroll, realizing it lacks any supernatural energy. Reading the inscription, Kairos is utterly dumbfounded by the useless and embarrassing nature of the voucher. Utterly bewildered, the young Demon King demands to know what kind of joke his mate has summoned. The glowing slip activates, revealing its absurd power to force an affectionate physical embrace. Suddenly, a wave of magical compulsion washes over Lilith, causing her to blush and shake as she addresses her master. To her horror, Lilith finds her body moving entirely on its own, leaving Kairos completely blindsided by what is about to happen. Despite Kairos' desperate plea to stop, the enchanted maid lunges forward to claim her forced embrace. The magical compulsion forces Lilith to wrap her arms around her master in a tight, affectionate hug. Frozen in absolute embarrassment, Kairos can only blush as Batisha watches the romantic chaos unfold with sheer amusement. The scene devolves into hilarious chaos as the dark-haired horned demon girl desperately tries to pry her spellbound sister away. Sinclair and Batisha voice their utter disbelief, completely appalled by the bizarre and inappropriate power of the Great Demon King's creation. Defending himself, a highly embarrassed Kairos admits he is just as frustrated with his terrible gacha luck as they are. Shaking off the embarrassment, the Demon King reaches for the remaining boxes, praying for at least one useful tool. His hopes are instantly crushed as a flurry of glowing, useless paper vouchers fills the air, leaving him empty-handed. Trying to find a silver lining, Lilith suggests that a specific voucher could save him a fortune on expensive castle renovations. Kairos' eyes light up as he realizes this bizarre reward is actually the perfect solution to their housing shortage. Eager to put his new plan into action, Kairos commands Lilith to open the gateway to the demon world. The gold-armored hero, Sinclair, enthusiastically insists on joining him, leaving Kairos completely caught off guard. Batisia steps forward to stop Sinclair, declaring that a human hero would only be a hindrance and that she should go instead. Rejecting both of their offers, Kairos firmly states he must embark on this dangerous mission entirely alone. The two female warriors can only watch in stunned silence as the glowing blue vortex begins to swallow the Demon King. With a confident, reassuring smile, Kairos promises he has other crucial matters to personally resolve before his return. The scene shifts to a silent city bathed in the eerie red glow of a full moon, hiding the destination of his secret journey. Arriving at a quiet stone building, Karos checks his map to confirm he has found the correct location. He steps inside a bustling workshop, home to the most legendary master renovation craftsman in the entire demon world. A muscular, brown-haired female apprentice named Luberia Brondry greets him with a warm smile, instantly recognizing her old schoolmate. The old academy friends share a nostalgic greeting, noting how far they both have come since their school days. Regretfully, Luberia gestures to her heavy workload, explaining that she is far too busy for a proper reunion right now. With a playful, apologetic grin, Karos reaches for his pocket, preparing to unleash his newly acquired cheat code. Instantly, a powerful magical compulsion freezes Luberia in her tracks, forcing her to drop her hammer in sheer panic. Karos smirks and tells her to put her skills to good use, leaving the outraged apprentice screaming in futile anger. Admiring the glowing command voucher in his hand, Carlos marvels at the absolute power of his bizarre gacha system. With his castle renovation successfully underway, the Demon King ventures deeper into the Crimson Night toward his next target. His path leads him to the most feared and secretive intelligence network in the demon world. Standing before a decaying, ruined building, he prepares to enter a place shrouded in absolute mystery. Despite its ruined facade, this crumbling structure houses unmatched information-gathering capabilities that span the entire continent. Pushing open a creaky wooden door, Karos notes that the legendary founder's bizarre habits remain completely unchanged. Deep inside the dark chamber, a cloaked old woman sits silently by a flickering candle, waiting for his arrival. The mysterious elder slowly bows her head, greeting her guest with a knowing, ancient smile. With a sudden burst of blue magical energy, the old woman begins a breathtaking metamorphosis. Shedding the disguise, Naviros, the legendary former Great Demon King, stands revealed in his true, majestic, silver-haired form. Karos responds with a firm, silent nod, prepared to pay any price for the vital secrets he seeks. A dark memory reveals that Baticia's former subordinates possess more than enough power to completely destroy Karos' kingdom. To protect the red-haired warrior and ensure his own survival, Karos must uncover their current strengths and weaknesses. Back in the present, Baticia sits under the starlit sky, unaware of the great sacrifices her demon lord is making to keep her safe. Seeking crucial answers from a powerful contact, the black-haired boy admits that gathering information on Great Demon King Astria's orders is incredibly difficult. The silver-haired man laughs knowingly, while Karos is visibly disappointed to hear his contacts already expected his arrival. Smiling slyly, the silver-haired Naviros notes that everything has a price and demands to know what Karos can offer. Karos smirks confidently, offering whatever he is actually able to give. Loud, agonized laughter suddenly echoes from the decaying ruins, shattering the silence of the night. To secure his answers, Karos uses a tickle command to force Naviros into fits of uncontrollable laughter. White-gloved hands tickle Naviros' bare feet as the retired demon lord protests this absolute loss of dignity. Karos offers a cheeky, unapologetic apology to Lord Naviros as his mischievous interrogation continues. Claiming he has nothing else to trade, Karos holds up a magic voucher to summon a demon of the past. Rolling helplessly on the floor, Naviros desperately begs Karos to stop the tickling and promises to reveal what happened to Baticia. Caught in the quiet moment, the silver-haired demon lord explains that the spirits are not actually looking for Batasia. Karos questions whether the enemy forces are simply defending their territory. Stunned by the revelation, Karos wonders if there's a rebellion brewing. Naviros confirms they are just defending their borders, which lies entirely beyond his retired jurisdiction. Chibi Karos contemplates the shocking tactical situation. Karos bows before Naviros to express his deep gratitude for the crucial information. Naviros angrily yells that Karos has exploited him far too many times already. Stopping in his tracks, Karos hesitates at the doorway before leaving. Smirking, Karos asks the former Demon King if he is feeling nostalgic about the past. Naviros asks if Karos remembers his childhood friend Sinclair, leaving Karos in silent shock. Naviros notes that the legendary hero Sinclair is not the same innocent child Karos once knew. Looking away with a sad smile, Karos softly admits he already knows that painful truth. Naviros recalls abdicating his throne to survive, warning that he is the last of the original Great Demon Kings alive. Pointing out their clashing ideals, Naviros notes Karos wants to choose a completely different path. Grabbing his staff, Naviros turns to walk deeper into the dark ruins. Approaching Karos with a piercing gaze, Naviros prepares to ask a much deeper question. Looking directly into the boy's eyes, Naviros demands to know what Karos truly desires. Laughing off the intense question, Karos smiles and claims his true desire is too obvious to state. Reverting to his old woman disguise, Naviros marvels at how much the young Demon King has grown. A dark flashback reveals a beaten, dirty young Karos desperately reaching out for a savior. Grabbing the stranger's leg, the helpless child begs to make a deal for his survival. Watching Karos step through a glowing portal, the disguised elder notes how long it has been since seeing Astrea. Stepping back into his territory, Karos gasps in pure shock at his newly renovated castle. Gleaming, highly decorated floor tiles sparkle under a magical green light. A massive, breathtaking gold crystal chandelier illuminates the entire entrance hall. The dark-haired maid reveals the massive expansion, but Karos is completely dumbfounded by the 25 new rooms. Luberia proudly boasts about her people's superior craftsmanship. The maid happily observes that all their allies seem to thoroughly enjoy the upgraded home. Kero scratches his head, agreeing that everyone's happiness is all that matters. Heavy footsteps echo down the grand staircase as a tired figure approaches. Liberia exhaustively complains about completing the task for the demonic ward. Chibi Kero smiles warmly and praises her excellent work. Reviewing his remaining vouchers, Karis realizes the terrifying power of his cheat system. Leaning on his shoulder, Luberia admits she never expected a weakling like him to become a demon king. Luberia reveals that everyone, even the mysterious bug princess, is talking about Karos' rising fame. Karos repeats her name in confusion, unaware of the lurking entity. Shivering in absolute terror, the group senses a creepy, floating, green-haired presence behind them. Karos coldly states he has no interest in those trapped in the demon world. Luberia warns that dangerous, horned demon silhouettes remain there for a very dark reason. Karos looks deeply serious as his companion warns him to be extremely careful. As the tense atmosphere lingers, the muscular brown-haired apprentice Luberia assures the group that the defensive barriers are holding strong. Saying her final goodbyes, Luberia bids the young demon lord and his companions farewell before leaving them to tend to their duties. Shaking off the heavy mood, the dark-haired elf maid Lilith excitedly suggests they begin a tour of their newly upgraded castle. With infectious energy, the gold-armored Sinclair and her companions enthusiastically rush up the grand carpeted staircase to explore their luxurious new home. Amidst the castle's hustle and bustle, Karos and the red-haired Batija escape to a quiet lounge to share a calming moment over tea. The silence breaks with the gentle click of a teacup as Karos notices her lingering anxiety and questions her worries. Leaning forward, the dark-haired demon king voices his genuine concern that her own siblings might betray her. Clutching her cup nervously, Batija bites her nail as she vehemently denies any possibility of her family turning on her. Karos shatters her optimistic denial, revealing he personally investigated the threat through a secretive spy network. Realizing her lord went to such great lengths entirely for her sake, the red-haired warrior stares at him in sheer disbelief. A deep blush overcomes Batija's face as she becomes completely overwhelmed by his quiet devotion and care. Cutting through her romantic daydream with a calm smirk, Karos dryly commands her to keep her head straight. He then delivers the real shocker, explaining that her siblings never betrayed her and are actually waiting back in the realm. The dark, skull-adorned throne of her homeland looms in her mind, a symbol of the dangerous path that lies ahead. A soft, relieved smile graces Batija's face as the heavy burden of doubt is finally lifted from her shoulders. Clutching her jewel tightly, she looks up with fiery determination, swearing to repay her demon lord once her powers return. Suddenly, the short-haired maid swings open the double doors to announce the arrival of an unexpected visitor. Karos questions who would arrive so late while the maid's sweat drops in visible hesitation. The doors burst open as the silver-haired woman, Irina, rushes into the room in a state of utter panic. High above Dark Castle, swear under Chrysamoon as terrifying threat, territorial war is announced. Sinking into a chair, the distressed silver-haired woman hands Karos a sealed black letter carrying an ominous red wax stamp. The written ultimatum from rival Lord Stukov Isaac demands absolute submission within a single week or face immediate annihilation. Karos reacts with visible irritation upon reading the insulting letter, outraged at being labeled an unpleasant force. Irina explains that the hostile declaration originates from Stukov Isaac, a powerful monarch ruling the neighboring human lands. A sinister puppet master's hand manipulating red strings in the dark suggests a far deeper conspiracy is at play. Irina reveals the true culprit behind the scenes is Count Hereda, a cold and calculating human noble. Karos ponders the name in frustration, trying to decipher how a human noble has any connection to the demon realm. Irina warns him that their household is at a severe disadvantage if this escalates into a full-scale war. She shuts her eyes in distress, acknowledging that the enemy forces are vastly superior in numbers and equipment. A visual of disciplined human infantry marching into battle reinforces the grim reality of their imminent destruction. Despite the threat, Karos firmly states that demons have no business interfering in human political conflicts. Placing the letter down, Irina agrees but notes that humans must be the ones to settle human affairs. Karos gazes over the peaceful human town, realizing he holds a highly valuable tool that could easily turn the tide. A sudden spark of inspiration hits the young demon king as he snaps his fingers in excitement. With a confident, mischievous smirk, Karos suggests utilizing a specialized group of human mercenaries. A flashback shows elite mercenary troops executing devastating magical attacks under Sinclair and Batista's personal training. However, the reality of their current hallway guards is a comical display of utter clumsiness and incompetence. The brown-haired mercenary commander points at himself in total disbelief, wondering why he was suddenly put in charge. Lounging on the sofa, Karos shamelessly flatters the commander, claiming he was chosen for his superior intellect. The bewildered commander laughs nervously as he realizes this promotion makes him and his brother prime targets. The commander sweat drops and argues that it would make far more sense for the Demon King to lead them directly. Karos shakes his head, firmly reminding him that demons are forbidden from meddling in human territory. He recalls the time when the silver-haired Irina was held captive inside a dark, heavily chained prison cell. Karos points at Irina, explaining that she will act as the true mastermind behind the scenes to maintain human trust. Irina bows with a grateful, serene smile, proving that their political trust issue has been completely solved. Sighing in resignation, the brown-haired commander yields to the plan and asks what their first move should be. Smiling confidently, Irina unrolls a large strategic map to present her carefully formulated tactics. A close-up of the detailed hand-drawn map reveals the complex valleys, bridges, and rivers surrounding the enemy territory. Gathering closely over the grand wooden table, the trio intensely studies the map to coordinate their high-stakes offense. The mercenary commander screams in absolute horror as he hears her ridiculously aggressive plan to wipe out the enemy's entire territory. Irina stares in absolute disbelief, completely shocked by the ridiculously aggressive strategy. Slamming his hand onto the strategic map, Vivaldi furiously points out the tactical vulnerability of leaving their center completely exposed to flanking maneuvers. Vivaldi explains that such a highly specialized defense is meant strictly for cliffside fortresses, questioning who would dare utilize it on flat ground. Keros and Irina share a highly awkward, nervous chuckle as their questionable tactical genius is laid bare. Sweating nervously under the pressure, Irina anxiously asks what their next course of action should be. Staring intently, the seasoned mercenary commander strokes his chin and begins to formulate his own counter-strategy. With a thunderous slam of his fist, Vivaldi confidently drives his point home directly onto the tactical map. Vivaldi proposes a relentless brute force offensive, noting the target is a defenseless territory completely devoid of elite knights. A terrifying visual depicts their true objective, bypassing a prolonged siege to capture the enemy commander directly and force an immediate surrender. With a chillingly confident grin, the young Demon King eagerly applauds the brilliant, high-stakes tactical plan. Keros officially grants Vivaldi full military authority, placing both the troops and the tactical execution entirely in his capable hands. In a hilariously awkward moment of handshake agreement, Keros casually reveals that he still doesn't even know the commander's name. Sweat-dropping, the Demon Lord shamelessly admits he never bothered to learn their names because they initially seemed completely insignificant to his grand plans. Vivaldi proudly beats his chest and introduces himself, declaring his name alongside his formidable older brother. He reveals that his incredibly powerful brother Thor has fully recovered and is ready to unleash pure carnage on the battlefield. Sensing victory, Keros flashes a warm, mischievous smile and commands Vivaldi to lead the charge and run rampant. 1 week later, the battle lines are drawn as Irina proudly leads a disciplined human defensive unit into the designated war zone. Riding at the vanguard, the silver-haired lady raises her fist high to deliver an inspiring battle cry to her troops. The mercenary brothers charge alongside her, confident that their overwhelming combat prowess will secure a swift victory. With a deafening battle cry, the elite mercenary vanguard storms out of the fortress gates to clash with the approaching enemy. The battlefield erupts into chaotic violence as steel collides with steel in a blinding flurry of sparks. Vivaldi skillfully deflects an enemy strike and delivers a devastating counterblow, sending his opponent reeling in agony. Providing lethal cover fire from the rear, Irina draws her bow with lethal precision, keeping the hostile forces at bay. Thick dust and blood fill the air as the defensive forces systematically dismantle the panicked enemy infantry. A sweeping tactical offensive pushes the invading soldiers back, throwing their ranks into absolute disarray. Looming like an unstoppable titan, the colossal Thor readies his massive battle axe to single-handedly confront the enemy knights. The enemy vanguard visibly trembles in sheer terror as they witness the overwhelming pressure of the scarred behemoth. Leaping high into the air, Thor swings his colossal axe downward to unleash a devastating shockwave upon the helpless knights. The ground shatters as Thor's brutal strike completely obliterates the defensive line in a fiery explosion of power. Watching the unfolding slaughter from the safety of the high castle walls, Keros dryly notes that the enemy is completely outclassed. Meanwhile, in his luxurious chambers, the rival Lord Stukov Isak gluttonously stuffs his face with grapes, entirely oblivious to the incoming threat. The arrogant and obese neighboring lord rests comfortably on his golden throne, fully expecting a swift and effortless victory. The greedy lord casually discusses his grand plans for the conquered territories with his subordinate. With a sinister grin, Stukov reveals his tyrannical plan to heavily tax the populace and wipe out any rival noble houses. His eyes gleam with dark lust as he imagines capturing the beautiful silver-haired lady to keep all for himself. Licking his fingers in perverse anticipation, the wicked lord relishes the thought of his impending victory. Suddenly, the grand double doors of the throne room are violently rattled by a desperate scream from outside. Jumping up from his throne in a panic, the startled lord demands to know what is causing the chaotic uproar. A panicked guard bursts through the heavy doors to deliver some highly alarming news. Terrified and covered in dirt, the guard screams that the enemy forces have already breached their innermost defenses. Like a harbinger of absolute destruction, the towering Thor steps through the doorway, ready to end the conflict once and for all. Surrounded by his defeated guard, the trembling Stukov desperately commands the massive intruder to lay down his weapon. With a terrifying, bloodthirsty smirk, the giant mercenary captain mockingly questions the very concept of surrender. With a single effortless sweep of his mighty axe, Thor shatters the remaining defensive spears with overwhelming force. Standing triumphant over a pile of groaning knights, the brutal warrior readies his weapon for the final blow. Staring death directly in the face, the arrogant lord begins to shake violently as his life flashes before his eyes. In a desperate, cowardly bid for survival, the terrified lord snatches a helmet from his own soldier to disguise himself. Casting aside his grand royal cape, Stukov completely strips away his royal identity to flee unnoticed. The giant mercenary watchfully tracks the pathetic lord as he desperately scrambles toward the exit in a low-rent disguise. Grabbing the cowardly lord by his stolen helmet mid-stride, Thor playfully asks where he thinks he is going, sealing the tyrant's inevitable doom. A hand clad in a brown leather glove grips the wooden staff of a weapon with relentless force, preparing for a devastating blow. The disguised tyrant Stukov is brutally struck down in a single blow, spitting blood in absolute shock. The brown-haired Vivaldi gazes down at the dead lord in utter shock, realizing his brother has accidentally killed the enemy commander. Vivaldi panics and scolds his colossal brother Thor, reminding him that murdering high-ranking nobles is strictly against the law. Irina clutches her head in absolute exhaustion as the black-haired Karos mischievously wonders about the consequences of breaking human laws. Realizing the severity of their actions, Irina clutches her fist, knowing they have now directly defied the powerful Count Harada. Facing the inevitable, the remaining enemy knights lay down their weapons and bow down on the red carpet in total submission. Trembling on the floor, a terrified soldier begs for mercy and pleads for them to let them go. The weeping soldiers confess that they are merely poor commoners who were cruelly exploited by their greedy lord. They reveal that they only wish to migrate to Irina's peaceful and prosperous territory. Seeing no other option, the kneeling soldiers desperately beg Irina to become their new lord. Karos smiles deviously, pointing out to Irina that this is the perfect opportunity to double the size of her estate. With a heavy sigh, Irina accepts the daunting task of ruling, bracing herself for the busy days ahead. The captured knights erupt into tears of joy and cheer, celebrating their sudden salvation. Sensing a brilliant turn of events, Vivaldi, Karos, and Irina share a triumphant, knowing look. A tactical map reveals that Irina's territory has officially doubled in size after absorbing the fallen lord's lands. The ranks of the human forces under the Demon King's shadow double in size as the newly recruited soldiers train. A scout runs frantically to deliver a message signaling that a major crisis is already on the horizon. Vivaldi bursts into the room in a state of panic, waving a black letter with a crimson wax seal. Resting in her luxurious chair, Irina calmly notes that she has already received far too many letters to care. A close-up shows her quill gliding over paper with a massive stack of pending correspondence sitting beside her. Vivaldi interrupts her writing to hand over the dark envelope, warning her that this message is far more dangerous. Taking the black envelope, Irina's eyes widen in sheer horror as she recognizes the sender. A tight close-up of Irina's trembling eye captures her sudden, paralyzing shock. The ominous letter from Count Harada demands an immediate surrender, threatening a brutal invasion without warning if they refuse. Irina clutches the threatening ultimatum, deeply frustrated by how quickly the hostile count has decided to make his move. Lounging comfortably on a sofa, Karos casually asks if this human count is truly such a formidable threat. An oppressive dark haze hangs in the air, signaling the arrival of a massive storm on the horizon. A visual of an elite golden-armored army marching before a giant fortress reinforces the terrifying scale of the count's military power. Karos snaps his book shut, slyly contemplating if he should use the captured Betija as a brainwashed spy. Vivaldi asks why she is ignoring the rest of the mail, prompting Irina to notice yet another peculiar envelope on her desk. Irina reaches out to pick up a pristine white envelope, completely stunned to find the official royal seal stamped upon it. Inside, a highly elegant formal invitation written in beautiful cursive calligraphy is Revib. Karos looks up in absolute shock upon learning that they have received an official invitation from the Crown Prince himself. A delicate white high heel steps gracefully onto the stone courtyard of the Grand Royal Palace. Wearing an elegant mask and a refined suit, Karos gently takes Irina's hand to escort her into the high society event. With a confident smirk behind a silver eye mask, Karos asserts that wearing a mask is a classic tradition for noble parties. As they walk together, Irina questions why none of their other companions were allowed to join them. Karos chuckles mischievously, recalling the hilarious chaos that took place back at the castle. Under a blood-red full moon, a furious scream of outrage echoes from the towering spires of the Demon King's fortress. Back in the castle, the twin-tailed demon girl pouts in disbelief upon hearing that Karos is taking Irina to the royal ball. Karos calmly sips his tea, explaining that the prince's high status makes this the perfect move to counter the hostile count. The twin-tailed demon girl aggressively grabs Karos by the head, demanding to tag along to protect him. The dark-haired demon secretary demands to join as well to answer her doubts, while the red-haired demon girl happily waves, eager to dance. Drawing her golden sword, the blonde knight captain firmly declares that she cannot let them walk into potential danger alone. Karos sweat drops and desperately tries to calm them down, arguing that they cannot leave their base completely unguarded. A comical mental image depicts Karos being completely overwhelmed by a circle of complaining, nagging girls. Giggling softly at the memory, Irina notes how much everyone loves him, to which Karos smugly boasts about his irresistible charm. The Grand Royal Ballroom sparkles under massive golden chandeliers as countless masked nobles dance across the floor. Stepping into the magnificent hall, the undercover duo prepares to navigate the dangerous web of human high society. Tensions explode in the royal ballroom as our heroes finally confront the Empire's Golden Prince. Irina graciously thanks Prince Adolf for inviting them to the grand ball. Bowing respectfully before His Highness, she expresses her deep honor at attending such an illustrious social gathering. The blonde prince welcomes her warmly, encouraging her to enjoy the spectacular night to her heart's content. A group of disgruntled masked nobles suddenly interrupts, calling out urgently to the prince. Count Harita bows slightly before Prince Adolf, noting it has been a long time since they last met. Sensing a private conversation, the silver-haired Irina politely suggests she and her companion step away. The hostile count halts their departure, aggressively pointing out Irina and Karos to the prince. Count Harita venomously reveals that the duo standing before them was recently engaged in a brutal territorial war. The prince acknowledges their victory, but the count counters with a dark accusation of murder against Irina. The count furiously declares that a noble of high blood has been slain, breaking a sacred family line. He angrily demands to know how the lowly commoners will react to such a lawless, violent act. Pointing a finger, Count Harita begs the prince to punish the silver-haired woman for dishonoring the nobility. Observing the unfolding trap, Karos realizes this public denunciation was the count's true reason for attending. A heavy, suffocating silence falls over the ballroom as everyone anxiously awaits the prince's final judgment. The oppressive atmosphere deepens as the fate of our heroes hangs by a thread. Suddenly, a cold, mocking smirk breaks across the blonde prince's face, signaling a dangerous shift. Turning the tables completely, Prince Adolf shockingly declares that Count Harita is officially stripped of his nobility. A collective gasp of absolute shock and horror sweeps through the stunned crowd of nobles. Count Harita stands frozen in sheer disbelief, desperately questioning the prince's sudden, devastating decree. The blonde prince mockingly suggests that since the count hates being disgraced as a noble, he is simply no longer one. Falling to his knees, the terrified count desperately asks if His Highness is playing a cruel joke. The prince's eyes flash with a lethal intensity as he demands to know if he looks like he is joking. Irina watches in utter amazement while the black-haired Karos quietly relishes this highly entertaining turn of events. Turning his back on the ruined man, the prince summons Count Rabov to step forward immediately. Count Rabov quickly approaches and bows, offering his humble greetings to His Imperial Highness. The prince officially dissolves the House of Harita, granting all of their former lands directly to Count Rabov. Realizing his ruin, the former Count Harita screams in horror, begging the prince to stop this madness. Heavy footsteps echo through the hall as a formidable figure steps forward, calling out the ruined noble's name. The legendary silver-armored knight captain steps forward, proudly declaring his status as the first heir wielding the Empire's sword. With terrifying speed, the knight captain places his sharp blade directly against the desperate noble's neck. The prince coldly reminds the kneeling man that all his lands and power were merely temporary gifts of royal mercy. Completely shattered, the former count grovels on the floor, pleading desperately for a single final chance. Annoyed, Prince Adolf dismissively commands his guards to silence the screaming man and drag him away. Screaming in absolute terror, the ruined noble is aggressively dragged out of the grand ballroom by armed guards. With a sharp, casual snap of his fingers, the prince calmly notes that the music has ceased. Hearing the command, the grand orchestra immediately resumes their playing, restoring the ballroom's elegant atmosphere. The blonde prince smoothly walks back toward our heroes, flanked by his formidable white-haired knight captain. Standing before them, the prince sighs in relief, glad that the annoying nuisance has finally been cleared away. Irina curtsies gracefully, expressing her profound gratitude for His Highness's incredibly decisive and favorable intervention. The blonde prince smoothly suggests continuing their conversation in his private chambers later that evening. Irina falters in surprise at the invitation, but the prince quickly clarifies she will not be alone. The prince drops a massive bombshell, revealing he knows the black-haired servant is actually the legendary Demon King. Moments later, a heavily armored hand knocks firmly on the door to the prince's private quarters. Karos steps inside the luxurious chamber as the formidable silver-armored knight captain stands watch at the door. Resting comfortably on a lavish sofa, the blonde prince welcomes his dangerous guest with a glass of wine. The prince casually downs his drink and cordially invites Karos to pour himself a glass as well. Complying with the request, Karos calmly walks over to the table to pour a drink. Pouring the red wine, Karos mockingly questions if the prince's relaxed demeanor implies absolute trust. Karos notes that with the legendary Empire's sword guarding the room, poison would be entirely redundant. A final, tense toast seals a highly dangerous and secret alliance between the Crown Prince and the Lord of Demons. Sipping his wine, the black-haired Karos realizes the prince has been secretly observing him since their encounter at the Sun Temple. The blonde prince formally introduces himself as Prince Adolf and boldly asks for his guest's true identity. Karos firmly shakes the prince's hand, declaring his title as the Demon King of Madness and Greed, much to Adolf's amusement. Slamming his empty glass onto the table, the Demon King signals that the time for pleasantries is officially ended. Crossing his arms impatiently, Karos demands to know the real reason behind his sudden secret summons. Smiling calmly, the prince mockingly notes that the legendary Lord of Demons is just as impatient as the rumors suggest. Standing opposite his guest, Prince Adolf proposes a mysterious high-stakes deal that instantly catches Karos off guard. To Karos's absolute bewilderment, the lazy prince reveals his deal is merely to have the Demon King handle his annoying imperial paperwork. Completely overwhelmed by the absurdity of the request, Karos bursts into uncontrollable, hysterical laughter. Wiping away a tear, Karos mockingly questions why a supreme demon king would ever agree to become a royal secretary. The prince's smile turns dangerously cold as he drops a massive bombshell, revealing he knows the exact location of the hidden demon fortress. Karos freezes in paralyzing shock as his laughter instantly dies, realizing the catastrophic danger of the prince's leverage. Adolf smugly offers to keep the fortress's coordinates hidden from humanity, dangling their survival in exchange for administrative help. Currently protected only by a fragile barrier, the exposed demon fortress would face immediate ruin if its location leaked. With the fanatical sun god's order actively hunting them, the coordinates are the only thing keeping the demons safe. Karos grimly realizes that if the prince decides to unleash the Empire's sword, his entire domain will be utterly annihilated. Leveraging the lives of Karos' loyal companions, the manipulative prince forces the cornered demon king to accept. Reluctantly respecting the human's audacity, Karos admits that the prince has incredible guts for threatening a demon lord. Shaking hands once more, a highly dangerous and secret pact is officially forged between the crown prince and the demon king. With no other choice, the supreme ruler of demons begins signing official imperial documents with a quill. Stretching his arms, Karos smugly boasts about how incredibly easy human administrative work is for a mind like his. Letting out a massive yawn, Karos is suddenly interrupted by a heavy sound echoing through the office. His smugness instantly vanishes as a towering, endless mountain of new paperwork is slammed onto his desk. The veteran royal knight quickly excuses himself, completely ignoring Karos' outraged screams of administrative slavery. Slumped over his desk in pure despair, the great demon king bitterly laments his pathetic new life as a corporate slave. Glancing out the grand window, Karos' attention is suddenly drawn to a tense confrontation taking place in the courtyard below. Groveling desperately in the dirt, the ruined former Count Romer of Hereda begs the prince for a shred of royal mercy. Prince Adolf coldly dismisses his pleas, shifting the blame to the noble who physically seized the former count's lands. Smirking ruthlessly, the prince turns his back and suggests the ruined man take his complaints to his replacement instead. Gritting his teeth in silent, impotent rage, the former count listens to the prince's final mocking dismissal. Bowing his head, Romerkorv's eyes flash a sinister glowing red, signaling a terrifying darkness festering within him. Back in the study, Karos furiously flips through files, deeply frustrated by how far he has fallen from his demonic throne. Karos seethes with jealousy, imagining the lazy prince relaxing in luxury baths while he is buried alive under piles of paperwork. A sharp knock on the grand office door suddenly snaps the annoyed demon king out of his thoughts. Entering the room, the silver-haired veteran knight informs Karos that their daily schedule has suddenly changed. Gesturing toward the exit, the loyal knight instructs the undercover demon to follow him immediately. Moving swiftly, the elegant royal carriage speeds down a grassy path toward an undisclosed royal destination. Inside, Karos questions if they are heading to a meeting, but the prince quickly corrects his casual language with royal titles. Arms crossed, Karos demands to know why a demon lord is being dragged along to a private royal family gathering. Prince Adolf happily admits he is using Karos' terrifying presence as a human shield against his annoying siblings. The prince playfully offers his companion a permanent job, but Karos instantly shuts down the ridiculous proposal. Suddenly, the carriage jolts violently as the horses screech to an abrupt forced halt on the road. Sensing immediate danger, the blonde prince quickly pokes his head out of the window to investigate the disturbance. Looking back with alarm, the knight captain warns them that a hostile force has blocked their path. Staring at the carriage, a vengeful figure whispers that his targets have finally arrived. A twisted, confident smirk spreads across the face of the mysterious ambush leader. Glaring through the shadows, the disgraced former count notes that the prince has always possessed a rebellious look. Stepping out of the carriage, Karos prepares to confront whatever threat has dared to stop them. Drawing his sword, the veteran knight demands to know why the ruined Romeraf is blocking the royal carriage with armed soldiers. Surrounded by a suffocating dark aura, Romerath unleashes his new power, leaving Karos horrified as he detects the ominous presence of demonic magic. Sensing a terrifying trap, Romeraf looks down as a suffocating purple demonic aura surges beneath his feet. From the swirling void, colossal, glowing silhouettes of ancient demon lords manifest, ready to unleash absolute devastation. The summoned demon lords mockingly acknowledge the arrival of the crown prince, confident they made the right deal. Completely ignoring the prince, one gargantuan blue demon declares his sole desire to slay the legendary Empire's sword. Levitating amidst the monstrous spirits, Romerath gloats that this dark alliance is more than enough to crush the legendary knight captain. Facing the imminent threat, Prince Adolf remains completely unfazed, questioning if the disgraced noble truly traded his humanity just for revenge. Driven mad by ruin, Romeref proudly declares he is willing to sacrifice everything to see the crown prince dead. Drawing his sword with a sinister sneer, the fallen count prepares to strike a fatal blow against the royal carriage. With a mad cry, Romeraf leaps forward, channeling his volatile dark magic directly into a devastating physical attack. A massive shockwave of dark energy obliterates the path, threatening to tear the royal carriage and horses to shreds. Reacting instantly to the blast, the veteran knight captain urges the crown prince to take shelter inside the reinforced carriage. Inside the shaking cabin, Prince Adolf is amused by the chaos while Karos unimpressively questions if this was his grand security plan. The Crown Prince casually asks his Demon Lord companion if he recognizes the monstrous entities ambushing them. Karos narrows his eyes, admitting that while he does not know them personally, these threats are undeniably formidable. Karos recalls that most Demon Lords in the human world were wiped out, making this particular ambush extremely unusual. He grimly analyzes that any survivors of those ancient purges must possess terrifying mid-level power or higher. Adolf leans back, casually inquiring how their protector plans to handle 5 high-tier Demon Lords at once. To Karos' bewilderment, the old knight captain suddenly tells the prince to shut up, revealing a surprisingly feminine voice. With a swift motion of her armored hand, the legendary captain peels away her hyper-realistic old man disguise. In a stunning revelation, the fearsome Empire's sword is revealed to be a beautiful young woman with long flowing white hair. Catching her master's reflection, Quasha sighs at the annoying prince but prepares to execute her duty regardless. Outside, a massive bolt of purple demonic lightning crashes down from the sky, aiming directly at the stalled carriage. Emerging like a flash of light, Quasha effortlessly deflects the lethal magic with a single, elegant sweep of her sword. Standing proudly against the 5 towering shadows, the white-haired knight mocks their predictable assault as a mere illusion. With supreme confidence, the female knight taunts the monstrous group, daring them to follow her deep into the woods. Taking the bait, the Demon Lords chase after her, leaving the panicked former count screaming for them to hold on. Romaref desperately yells at his monstrous allies, reminding them that the Pris must remain their primary target. Infuriated by the humans' insolence, a green glowing demon aggressively asserts that demons do not take orders from mortals. Left with no choice, Romaref curses the stubborn monsters and turns back to deal with the royal carriage himself. Realizing the legendary protector has been lured away, the disgraced count smiles, knowing the prince is now completely defenseless. Drawing his sword, Romaref commands his armored human soldiers to charge forward and execute the crown prince immediately. Armed to the teeth, the traitorous guards rush down the path toward the helpless carriage. Deep within the dense forest, the sound of crashing branches echoes as the chase reaches its climax. A colossal blue claw strikes down with lethal precision, tearing through the trees in a desperate attempt to crush Quasha. Wearing a cool black eye patch, the white-haired knight agilely leaps through the canopy, easily dodging the destructive attack. The giant blue demon looks around in confusion, searching the shadowy forest floor for his elusive target. Dropping silently from the treetops, Quasha catches the beast completely off guard with an overhead ambush. With terrifying speed, the knight captain unleashes a devastating slash that slices directly through the giant demon's torso. Landing gracefully on the forest floor, Quasha confidently mocks her opponent's sluggish movements. Desperate to survive, the wounded demon attempts to summon a glowing green core to regenerate his shattered body. Before he can activate the magic, the demon freezes in horror as the glowing orb suddenly vanishes from his grasp. Appearing behind him like a ghost, Quasha reminds her foe never to let his guard down in battle. With a swift motion, the legendary knight captain snatches the vital core right out of the demon's hand. Hurling the unstable energy core with precise aim, Quasha detonates it directly against the approaching orange glowing demon. A massive, blinding explosion rocks the forest, vaporizing the secondary threat in a brilliant flash of golden light. Stepping heavily onto the smoldering remains of her fallen foe, Quasha calmly notes that only 4 targets remain. Raising her glowing blade, she smiles fiercely as the reflections of the remaining 4 Demon Lords appear on her steel. Back at the carriage, a sudden explosion of golden energy erupts, instantly incinerating the surrounding forest road. Stepping out of the burning wreckage, Karos warns the traitorous soldiers to back off if they value their pathetic lives. The advancing soldiers freeze in absolute terror, realizing that another terrifyingly powerful Demon Lord stands right before them. The disgraced count grits his teeth with a sinister grin, plotting his desperate next move. Driven to madness, the ruined noble lunges forward with a sword to assassinate the crown prince. The traitor thrusts his blade downward, but Prince Adolf acts instantly, catching the weapon barehanded. Blood drips freely from the prince's hands as he desperately struggles to halt the lethal blade. Romaref sneers with sadistic glee, realizing he finally has the crown prince completely at his mercy. Watching the brutal struggle from a distance, Karos cries out in shock at the prince's mortal danger. With a savage thrust, the traitor drives his sword directly into Adolf's chest. A violent burst of crimson blood erupts, staining the clearing as the devastating blow lands. Gasps of agony echo through the quiet woods as the wounded prince collapses onto the cold ground. Clutching his bleeding stomach, the dying prince weakly asks the Demon Lord if he intends to spare him. Seeing a golden opportunity, Karos proposes rewriting their contract so his sole duty is to save the prince's life. Desperate to survive, the bleeding prince readily accepts the terms of the new agreement. A powerful surge of purple magical energy erupts, confirming the successful creation of a new binding pact. Invoking his power, Karos summons a strange green slime monster to deal with the remaining guards. The terrified rebel soldiers scream in panic as the bizarre gelatinous creature lunges directly at them. Romaref spins around in absolute bewilderment, sensing the massive magical power manifesting behind him. A colossal wall of green slime towers over the petrified traitor, sealing his escape. The gelatinous monster completely engulfs the screaming count, trapping him within its glowing green mass. The thick slime completely encases the traitorous noble, slowly neutralizing his threat. Karos wipes his brow and sighs in relief, glad that his improvised strategy worked. The black-haired demon lord suddenly freezes as a rustling sound alerts him to an approaching figure. Having dealt with her targets, Quasha sprints back into the clearing, screaming for the prince. Weakly looking up, the wounded prince recognizes his loyal knight captain's return. Adolf weakly scolds his protector for arriving late while she expresses deep worry for his injuries. Quasha points her blade at the massive green slime, questioning how they should handle the trapped traitor. Karos calmly assures her that the defeated noble will soon fade away into nothingness. From within the glowing magical prison, the dying count screams a final desperate warning to the prince. With a soft hiss, Romarev completely crumbles into ash, leaving nothing but dust on the forest floor. Karos chides the wounded prince, pointing out that his reckless deal with other demon lords caused this mess. Impressed by the timely rescue, Adolf praises the demon lord, while Karos casually accepts the compliment. Quasha eyes Karos with deep suspicion, demanding to know why a demon lord would save humanity's rulers. Adolf shrugs off her worries, pointing out that having a powerful demon lord on their side is incredibly useful. A mysterious purple aura surrounds Karos as the prince notes how rare it is to find a demon lord this intelligent. Smiling warmly, Adolf extends his hand, offering to stand by the demon lord's side from now on. Karos reluctantly accepts the handshake, sealing an alliance with the eccentric prince. The scene transitions to an imposing dark castle standing beneath a blood-red moon. Inside the grand hall, a massive feast is laid out as the companions gather to celebrate. The dark-haired secretary calmly announces her massive points accumulation, catching Kairos off guard. The red-haired woman proudly boasts about her success in eliminating the count and winning favor with the prince. Exuberantly raising her wine glass, she insists they must drink to celebrate their massive success. When Karos asks about her drinking plans, the energetic redhead happily declares they will party until dawn. Empty wine bottles and tipped glasses litter the table as the chaotic celebration rages on. Completely drunk, the blushing redhead sloppily tells Karos he should show more gratitude. Taking a quiet sip of wine, Karos dryly questions what she's been babbling about all evening. Looking around, Karos finds himself surrounded by a chaotic group of beautiful but incredibly annoying women. The horned demon girl rests her head on her hand, looking exhausted by the loud party. Flatly dismissing their boasts, Karos tells his companions they are completely delusional. A system caption introduces the quiet secretary, highlighting her tendency to physically discipline her boss. The blushing, boisterous redhead is formally introduced as a self-centered former demon lord. The final panel introduces the blonde former hero and the naive horned demon girl, completing the most chaotic household in the empire. The fragile peace of his chaotic sanctuary instantly shatters as his eccentric companions plunge into a wild dinner table brawl. Overwhelmed by the non-stop bickering, Karos humorously swallows his pride and flatters his rowdy housemates just to get some quiet. Swirling her wine, the red-haired former demon lord Bathesia casually shifts the topic to their accumulated system points. Karos stares intently at his interface, realizing a crucial second chest is yet to manifest for him. He decides to keep his monster summoning abilities hidden away, saving them strictly for absolute emergencies. His loyal secretary steps forward, pointing out the severe crises currently plaguing their local human village. A grim gaze into their desolate treasury reveals the previous ruler's reckless spending has left him completely broke. Exhaling a weary sigh, the black-haired lord wonders why he must clean up after foolish human mistakes. His secretary delivers a harsh reality check, warning him that they only have 3 months before bankruptcy. Refusing to let his domain crumble, Karos leaps to his feet with sudden determination to secure quick funding. His chaotic household cheers wildly, eagerly chasing their demon lord as he marches out to find riches. To solve their financial crisis, Karos decides to activate his rare material summoning box for instant profit. He recalls how these mysterious storage cubes previously granted him legendary accessories and valuable human currencies. Summoning his adorable slimes, the demon lord instructs them to quickly eat any junk that drops. A loud pop echoes through the room as the first summoning container is successfully unsealed. Karos peers into the glowing container with quiet anticipation, hoping for a grand jackpot. He pulls out a shimmering platter overflowing with precious gemstones, rare fruits, and shiny silver coins. His secretary smiles with delight, confirming the valuable loot can fund their entire territory for 3 months. The black-haired lord hesitates, debating if spending 3,000 points for 3 months of survival is efficient. Remembering that a powerful prince now guards their borders, Karos smiles, realizing their defenses are already secured. Feeling a rush of greed, he decides to burn through more points to secure even greater wealth. Confetti and bright streamers burst from the container as his second attempt is initiated. Eyeing the prizes, the demon lord goes all in, sacrificing another 5,000 points for the ultimate pull. Another loud pop resonates through the hall, signaling the arrival of his massive point investment. The color drains from Karos as he slumps to the floor in absolute soul-crushing despair. A worthless mountain of rusted military equipment and broken helmets emerges from the expensive summon. Inspecting a cracked, dull sword, Bethasia playfully mocks his hilariously bad luck at the gotcha pool. The fragile metal blade crumbles into dust instantly, confirming the entire drop is complete garbage. His green slime groans in sickness, completely unable to digest the awful scrap metal. Driven to hilarious madness over his wasted points, Chibi Karos shakes his secretary while she desperately tries to pacify him. Taking a deep breath, the exhausted Demon Lord glares at the single remaining summoning box. With Bethasia watching anxiously, Karos vows to destroy the entire system if this final attempt fails. A massive, crackling surge of magical energy suddenly erupts from the opening box, blinding the room. The companions shield their eyes in utter shock as an incredibly powerful presence begins to manifest. An intricate, glowing purple magic circle with an S-rank symbol forms directly on the palace floor. A beautiful, unconscious, purple-haired woman materializes from the rift, identified as Borsinia, the Demon King of Betrayal. Bethasia gasps in sheer disbelief, realizing the summoning box just pulled a literal Demon King into their living room. Karos stands in confusion, holding a random sweet potato, figuring the chest simply overlapped with a random teleportation spell. The sheer shock of the situation instantly cures Bethasia of her drunken stupor as she stares in awe. Gathering around the unconscious guest, the secretary notes the rumors of Borsina being hunted by Sotroko seem true. Karos wonders how the runaway Demon King managed to locate their secret fortress in the first place. The black-haired lord questions the logic of Borsenia seeking refuge here after her past history with Bethasia. A sudden twitch of a purple eye signals that their mysterious guest is finally waking up. Slowly sitting up on the couch, Borsinia rubs her eyes and looks around the unfamiliar hall in confusion. Recognizing her freedom, the purple-haired Demon King stands up and celebrates her successful escape with a triumphant laugh. Waving playfully, the eccentric newcomer cheerfully greets her old rival Bethasia as if nothing happened. Infuriated by her casual attitude, Bethesia's fist crackles with dangerous blue lightning as she demands answers. Borsenia casually dismisses the hostility, reminding her angry host to show some proper hospitality to a guest. Turning to face the black-haired lord, Borsenia formally requests Demon King Karos to protect her from her pursuer. Karos facepalms in absolute disbelief, wondering if she has completely lost her mind by bringing her deadly enemies to his doorstep. A dangerous threat instantly shatters the fragile peace as Borsenia smugly warns that she will expose their secret castle's location to the entire world unless they grant her asylum. Karos mockingly dismisses her desperate attempt at blackmail, warning that the great Demon King will tear her to pieces if her betrayal is discovered. Defiant and completely unfazed, the purple-haired Demon King coyly retorts that unspoken secrets can never cause any real harm. Collapsing lazily onto the couch, Borsenia acts completely indifferent to their decision, claiming she has nothing left to lose and simply wanted to drop one last bombshell. Standing firm beside Bethasia, Karos coldly rejects her demands, stating they have absolutely no reason or incentive to help her. Borsenia freezes in absolute, wide-eyed disbelief at the black-haired lord's blunt and uncompromising refusal. Karos towers over the sitting captive, pointing out that since they already have a treaty with the human prince, simply executing her right now would solve all their problems. Highlighting his formidable companions Lilith, Sinclair, and Bethasia, the Lord proudly boasts that his household possesses an invincible defense. Eager for a fight, the red-haired Bethasia steps forward and demands to be the one to deliver the final lethal blow to her ancient rival. Borsenia trembles in sheer terror as she realizes she is completely surrounded by deadly warriors ready to end her life on command. Before the execution can proceed, the dark-haired secretary Lilith raises her hand to request a brief, private tactical discussion with her master. Sinclair draws her golden sword, keeping the terrified guest secured at blade point while the others step aside to deliberate. Huddling together in the center of the grand hall, Karos asks his core companions what speed they wish to discuss regarding their prisoner. Lilith calmly proposes a different approach, suggesting they hand Borsenia over to her relentless pursuer Sotrokros instead of killing there themselves. She explains that Sotrokros is famous for hunting down his targets personally, and there is absolutely no need to provoke him by interfering. Karos strokes his chin thoughtfully, admitting that avoiding conflict with a powerful Demon King is a highly logical and reasonable plan. Though highly disappointed that she cannot deliver the killing blow herself, Bethasia sighs and begrudgingly yields to the group's consensus. Just as Lilith cheerfully assumes the matter is settled, Karos catches everyone off guard by suddenly vetoing the decision. The black-haired lord shocks his entire household by abruptly announcing his decision to accept Borsenia's deal after all. Unrolling a massive parchment map, Karos prepares to show his dumbfounded companions the hidden strategic genius behind his sudden change of heart. Pointing to the vast western lands, he explains that despite her current weakened state, Borsenia still rules over an incredibly massive demonic territory. He notes that while his influence and alliances have successfully secured stability within the human realm, his authority is strictly limited. Referencing a tactical map, Karos reveals his critical weakness: he currently lacks any official sovereign foothold or territory within the demon world. Pointing out his sleeping lazy monsters, he admits that neighboring demon kings would immediately invade his sanctuary if they realized how weak his actual forces are. Lilith nods in quiet admiration, instantly understanding the brilliant strategic foresight behind her master's calculations. But Thesea warns that protecting Borsinia means directly opposing Sotrakros, but Keros calmly reassures her that he has no intention of fighting him. A malicious, devious grin spreads across Keros's face as he notes that truly intelligent beings should always resolve their issues through clever negotiation. Returning to the couch, the scheming lord gazes down at his anxious guest to deliver his final terms. Keros extends his hand, offering her absolute asylum and protection on one single non-negotiable condition. Borsinia eagerly promises to do whatever he wants, but her excitement instantly vanishes when he demands everything she currently possesses. The purple-haired Demon King stands frozen in complete, utter shock, struggling to process his extreme and sudden demand. Shrouded in an ominous glowing purple aura, Keros reveals his true condition, a complete soul engraving that will strip away her sovereign status. Terrified by the severe implications, Borsinia stumbles backward in horror, shouting in protest at the mention of a soul contract. With desperate anger, she frantically questions if he truly understands the terrifying and irreversible weight of such a binding ritual. Keros looks back with a smug, knowing smile, confirming that the contract will literally engrave his authority onto her very soul. Showing an ancient statue holding a glowing heart, he notes that a soul contract fully binds the target's past, present, and future, forcing them to surrender all honor. Turning his back on her, Keros remains unfazed as Borsinia desperately argues that proud demon lords would rather die than abandon their honor. Borsinia demands to know if he truly believes she would accept such humiliation, but Keros notes that she is far from a typical demon lord. An ominous silhouette looms behind the sweating woman as Keros reminds her that she is the demon lord of betrayal and snakes. Looking down at the cornered guest, Keros points out that for a snake like her, abstract concepts like honor and authority mean absolutely nothing. Keros points his finger directly at the trembling woman, coldly declaring that her own survival is the only thing she truly cares about. Clutching her chest in absolute defeat, Borsinia curses under her breath, realizing her bluff has been completely exposed. Keros begins channeling a surge of brilliant magical energy into his fingertips, ready to initiate the ancient ritual. An intricate, glowing purple magic circle erupts on the floor directly beneath Borsinia, locking her in place. Borsinia looks up in shock as the reality of her ultimate subjugation begins to manifest around her. With a devious smile, Keros delivers his ultimate ultimatum, demanding to know if she chooses immediate death or survival. Trembling but resigned, the purple-haired Demon King officially chooses survival over her shattered pride. A brilliant column of purple light erupts around Borsinia, initiating the soul-binding contract. Keros smirks as he recites the ancient incantation, establishing the soul contract under the authority of the great Demon King. Borsinia closes her eyes in complete submission as Keros demands her final agreement to dedicate her entire existence to him. With absolute desperation in her eyes, the cornered purple-haired Demon King formally submits to the black-haired lord's terrifying contract. Borsinia sinks to her knees as Keros watches a powerful binding purple aura envelop her entire body. The agonizing reality of the ritual sets in as she reflects on the massive empire and memories she is about to lose forever. Glowing with resentment, the proud Demon King curses the unfairness of her power being stripped away so effortlessly. A ghostly spiritual hand reaches out through the magical light, sealing the final step of the binding magic. Borsinia screams in despair as she tries in vain to resist the absolute authority of the contract. Keros smirks triumphantly, reminding his new servant that her soul now completely belongs to him. The black-haired lord closes his eyes as the immense magical energy finally begins to settle in the chamber. A glimpse into her past reveals Borsinia's true nature as she once slyly manipulated minor monsters with false promises. She remembers sitting proudly on her massive snake throne, ruling her domain through deceit and absolute command. Keros inspects the glowing purple essence of her soul, noting that her true essence is exactly the devious snake he expected. Back in the present, the black-haired lord tells the defeated Demon King to be grateful that he spared her life. They seal the pact with a firm grasp, finalizing the absolute soul contract between master and servant. Borsinia is left bewildered, questioning why no one warned her about the terrifying secrets of her new master. Sinclair chuckles mockingly, asking if anyone actually bothered to tell her that Keros is the ultimate demon lord slayer. Carrying a plain white chest, the red-haired Bethesda grumbles that she should have just executed her rival before the contract was accepted. Keros leads his companions out of the grand hall, telling everyone to hurry up as they prepare for their next move. Stepping outside, Borsinia looks up at the massive stone fortress, suddenly realizing they are at a human lord's castle. The towering stone stronghold stands silent and impenetrable under the dark, starry night sky. Inside a lavish study, a hard-working, silver-haired woman is busy sorting through towering stacks of paperwork. She suddenly freezes and turns around, sensing a massive wave of dark, unfamiliar energy approaching her chamber. Without warning, the massive double doors of her private office are forcefully swung wide open. The silver-haired administrator stares in complete shock as the intruders boldly step into her office. Karos greets her casually, introducing his companions and stating he has come to deliver some important business. Bethisa slams the heavy white box onto the wooden desk, prompting the administrator to question their lack of funds. The silver-haired woman looks inside, stunned to find the chest overflowing with a fortune of glowing, colorful gems. Karos laughs boisterously, boasting that this should cover their expenses, while Borsenia peeks from behind in cartoonish shock. Recovering her composure, the administrator grudgingly accepts the massive payment for her assistance. She points an accusing finger at Karos, exasperated that he has somehow brought home yet another troublesome guest. Turning back to her desk, she decides to ignore the bizarre situation since it is ultimately none of her business. Slamming her hands on the table, she demands to know the real underlying reason behind the black-haired lord's sudden visit. With a confident smile, Karos presents a sealed white envelope and asks her to deliver it immediately. The silver-haired administrator takes the letter, asking her master who the recipient is supposed to be. She looks down at the wax seal, realizing the message is officially addressed to Prince Ardov. Her eyes widen in pure disbelief as she gasps, questioning if he is truly contacting the human prince himself. A sudden gust of dramatic wind swirls through the study as the reality of his political machinations sinks in. A loud comical scream echoes from the castle turrets into the night as the administrator loses her absolute mind. Walking back down the quiet hallway, Karos casually notes that she seemed remarkably angry about the request. The black-haired lord smiles knowingly, confident that his grand plans will proceed without a single issue. 3 days pass in a blur as a blood-red moon hangs ominously over the Gothic spires of a demonic castle. Inside the grand halls, 2 panicked bat-winged succubus maids fly through the air, screaming for someone to wait. Borsenia runs for her life through the corridor, desperately yelling at the golden-armored Sinclair to stop tasing her. Bethisia watches the chaotic pursuit with deep annoyance, grumbling that she really should have finished off the annoying guest. Karos ignores the ongoing chaos in his mansion, keeping his cool focus locked on the impending arrivals. Out of breath, Borsenia slams her hands on the table, demanding to know who the secret letter was originally for. Looking up with a completely calm expression, Karos bluntly reveals that the letter was indeed sent to the prince. Borsenia stands frozen in utter shock, just as footsteps echo from the heavy entrance doors. A handsome blonde man in a royal uniform strides into the room alongside a formidable white-haired knight in silver armor. The blonde prince enthusiastically greets the room, marveling at the incredible gathering in the Demon Lord's domain. Prince Ardov spreads his arms wide in a warm welcome, ready to begin the high-stakes negotiation that could change the world forever. A sudden, familiar voice nearby triggers an immediate wave of panic inside Karos. Prince Ardov suddenly bursts into the room and locks the black-haired lord in a surprise embrace. The blonde prince happily squeezes Karos, laughing boisterously at their unexpected reunion. Karos immediately shoves the over-enthusiastic prince away, complaining about his surprisingly early arrival. In the corner, a pair of armored white gloves firmly grips the back of a luxury chair. Pulling up a seat, Prince Ardov casually explains that he simply couldn't ignore Karos' urgent summon. Karos looks at him flatly, accusing the prince of only showing up to find amusement. Prince Ardov cheerfully identifies Sinclair, the golden-armored knight, and the red-haired demon lord Bethisia among the crowd. Bethisia responds with a silent, murderous glare that could pierce through steel. The blonde prince laughs mockingly, noting that Karos' army is powerful enough to wage war on humanity. Enraged by his arrogance, Bethisia forcefully kicks a wooden chair aside with a loud clatter. The red-haired demon lord screams at the prince to keep his mouth shut while visiting another's territory. Bethisia furiously warns him that she is holding back her deadly intent solely because of his truce with Karos. Without warning, a sharp steel blade is thrust directly against Bethisia's throat. Quasia, the formidable white-haired knight, demands that the demon lord quiet down immediately. Glowing with a terrifying blue magical energy, Quasia coldly reveals she is also suppressing her own anger. Bethisia stands completely frozen in absolute shock, her eyes wide with sudden fear. Comically transformed into chibis, the 2 fierce warriors clash their blazing auras together in a childish standoff. Prince Ardov completely ignores the danger, laughing playfully as he wonders which of the 2 women is truly stronger. Karos clutches his head in absolute exhaustion, sighing that chaos has erupted before negotiations even began. An ominous red moon hangs over the dark castle spires as the household laments the inevitable cost of future repairs. Trying to restore order, the white-haired knight calmly begins pouring hot coffee at the negotiation table. Prince Ardov groans at the lack of tea, asking why Karos went to such lengths to call him. Pouring coffee for Karos, Quasia begrudgingly admits she is only serving him to preserve her prince's honor. Karos takes a slow sip, casually revealing that the purple-haired demon lord Borsenia is currently under his protection. Prince Ardov tilts his head, noting that he did not see her upon his arrival. With a soft cling, Karos sets down his gold-rimmed cup, acknowledging her powerful official title. A comical outline of a running figure appears as Karos reveals that she is actually an absolute coward who fled the scene. The blonde prince demands to know how this cowardly demon lord's presence relates to their meeting. The serious, white-haired knight continues silently pouring coffee into the cup. A close-up shows the warm, dark liquid filling the golden-rimmed porcelain cup. Karos takes another sip and calmly demands that the prince lend him the legendary sword of the kingdom. Prince Ardov instantly freezes, nearly spitting out his drink in complete disbelief. The blonde prince bursts into hysterical, mocking laughter, calling the black-haired lord completely insane. Still laughing, Prince Ardov questions if Karos truly expects to wage war against the terrifying Sotrokros for Borsinia's sake. A terrifying, glowing-eyed silhouette of the fearsome Sotrokros looms as the prince explains his legendary reputation. Demonic souls scream in agony as the prince describes Sotrokros as a ruthless monster who hunts and kills fellow demon lords. The prince closes his eyes, noting that Sotrokros normally has absolutely no interest in interfering with human territories. A terrifying vision of a medieval city consumed by roaring flames shows the disastrous consequences if his wrath ever turned toward humanity. Prince Ardov turns to his loyal, white-haired knight, asking if she agrees with his grim assessment. Quaisha closes her eyes and gives a silent, solemn nod of absolute agreement. Karos sits quietly, contemplating the heavy weight of an alliance forged strictly through a prince's sense of duty. He gazes out toward the dark, ominous castle, fully aware of the unpredictable dangers that lie ahead. Deep inside human territory, the purple-haired Borsenia dashes desperately through a dusty path. Crying comically, the snake demon lord frantically demands to know why she has to act as the bait. Standing atop a glowing purple magic circle, Borsenia screams toward Karos, reminding him of his promise to protect her. Pathasia watches from behind, anxiously questioning Karos on whether the terrifying Sotrokros will actually take the bait. Karos narrows his eyes with absolute unshakable confidence, confirming that their target is guaranteed to appear. Beside his heavily armed companions, Karos calmly explains that the monster's prey is standing right in front of him. A sudden menacing gust of black wind sweeps violently through the silent forest, signaling the arrival of an unimaginable threat. The ground violently trembles as the legendary hunter Sotrokros makes his menacing entrance. Standing atop a glowing magic circle, Borsenia panics, realizing their terrifying target has finally arrived. Sensing the overwhelming pressure, Karos immediately orders Bathesia and Sinclair to prepare for battle. Instantly, Sinclair draws her shimmering blade as Bathesia leaps forward to intercept the threat. Before they can react, an colossal force crashes down, easily pinning the terrified purple-haired demon lord. Tears stream down Borsenia's face as she desperately begs her allies to save her. Sotrokros easily shatters the barrier, identifying the coward before him as the Lord of Snakes, Vulcania. With a single casual movement of his hand, the fearsome warrior completely obliterates the magical shield. Unwilling to stand by, Bathesia and Sinclair launch a coordinated, high-speed assault through the forest. A massive pillar of brilliant blue energy erupts, threatening to consume everything in its path. The colossal blast detonates in a blinding explosion, but Sotrokros emerges from the smoke entirely unscathed. Looking down with absolute contempt, the red-haired hunter mockingly questions their cowardly tactics. Heavy, dark smoke billows around Sotrokros as he locks his eyes onto the true mastermind of the group. Turning his gaze toward Karos, the hunter formally recognizes him by his legendary ominous title. Karos simply smiles, amused that the fearsome demon lord killer already knows his reputation. Anxious for action, Bathesia urges Karos to stop stalling and unleash his move. Stepping forward, Karos calmly confronts the colossal warrior without showing a single hint of fear. With supreme confidence, Karos presents a mysterious white card to the legendary Four Rulers member. He offers to hold a peaceful discussion before they resort to unnecessary bloodshed. Karos holds the magical ticket high, inviting the relentless hunter to negotiate. The mysterious card suddenly dissolves into a bright blue aura, activating its strange hidden properties. Sotrokros clutches his chest in shock as he feels his immense power being forcefully suppressed. Glaring at his opponent, the hunter demands to know if this strange suppression is Karos's true ability. Karos playfully brushes off the question, inviting him to enjoy a nice, peaceful conversation instead. Realizing he has no choice, Sotrokros folds his arms and demands to get straight to the point. He directly questions if Karos has any intention of surrendering the snake demon lord to him. Sotrokros warns that leaving without his target would permanently scar his perfect hunting record. Karos quickly reassures him, knowing all too well that the hunter never lets his pair escape. He acknowledges that letting her go would severely tarnish the legendary warrior's reputation. However, Karos boldly claims that the hunter should be focusing on a completely different target now. Confused, the red-haired warrior listens closely as Karos questions the true purpose behind his hunt. Karos points out that the other demon lords are completely baffled by his relentless crusade. Standing in the distance, Sinclair and Bathesia struggle to hear the secret details of the conversation. Borsenia trembles in sheer terror, desperately asking her companions if she will be allowed to live. Sotrokros glares in her direction, causing the cowardly Snake Lord to let out a comical scream. Borsenia frantically hides behind her ally, praying that she can avoid the hunter's terrifying gaze. Karos continues his analysis, confidently asserting that his opponent's motives are actually quite simple. He reveals the core truth: the hunter only targets demon lords who have failed their sacred duties. To prove his point, the black-haired lord begins listing the hunter's past legendary kills. He recalls Ronaway, the lord of safety and peace who signed a truce with humanity and failed his demonic duty. Next, he names Folklore, the lord of music, who sold out his fellow demons for selfish gains. Finally, he mentions Vulcania, who betrayed her own kind to shamelessly expand her territory. A sudden gust of wind sweeps across the forest floor as the tension between them reaches a boiling point. Karos summons a bright purple flame in his hand, explaining that Vulcania is now under his absolute control. Since she is actively helping him attack humanity, Karos argues that the hunter no longer has a reason to kill her. Sotrakros smirks, deeply impressed that the black-haired lord managed to completely decipher his hidden motives. But his expression instantly darkens as he addresses Karos by his title of Madness and Greed. The hunter sports a sinister grin, pointing out a major flaw in Karos' clever defense. Sensing a sudden shift in the atmosphere, Karos' confident expression completely freezes. Erupting with a terrifying dark aura, the hunter demands to know how Karos is any different from the other corrupt rulers he has slain. Karos stands frozen in absolute shock as the hunter confirms his clever deduction was entirely correct. Unleashing a violent dark storm, Sotrakros declares that the black-haired lord will never comprehend his sacred conviction. Karos curses in sheer panic, realizing his desperate containment strategy has officially fallen apart. A sudden high-speed footstep signals the rapid arrival of a powerful ally on the battlefield. Bethesda swiftly sweeps into the fray, pulling Karos away from a destructive dark magic explosion. Bethesda frantically demands an explanation of the chaos as Sinclair stands prepared for combat. Sinclair prepares her massive blade, questioning whether their primary strategy has utterly failed. Karos grimly reveals that despite managing to converse, their peaceful negotiations have completely broken down. The magical command ticket dissolves into useless dust, leaving them without their ultimate trump card. Karos admits his failure to stop the hunter, noting that the Demon King's tokens are useless. Karos anxiously hopes their reinforcements arrive before they are completely overwhelmed by the hunter. A violent, ominous gust of wind sweeps through the darkened forest canopy, escalating the tension. Gathering a swirling dark vortex, Bethesda fiercely demands that the hunter focus his attention on her. Bethesda channels her magic to its absolute limits, demanding to know if their plan succeeded. The legendary hunter senses an impending attack from above and narrows his eyes in surprise. Colossal, blue-lit magical spires crash down from the heavens to forcefully restrain the formidable warrior. Unbothered by the restraint, Sotrakros coldly prepares to unleash his true, terrifying power. Karos rushes forward, invoking his authority as master to order his companions into action. With absolute urgency, Karos demands that his allies do whatever it takes to stop Sotrakros. A monumental explosion erupts across the battlefield, shattering the forest in a blinding flash. Sinclair charges forward with incredible momentum, her golden sword reflecting the chaotic light. Leaping downward, Sinclair delivers a devastating strike infused with brilliant golden magical energy. Sinclair watches the thick smoke anxiously, hoping her high-stakes assault was enough to succeed. A massive blast consumes the clearing, yet the unstoppable hunter emerges entirely unscathed. Karos lunges forward in panic, desperately screaming for his allies to retreat immediately. Emerging as a terrifying silhouette, Sotrakros mockingly declares that their efforts are far too late. With terrifying speed, the hunter hoists Sinclair into the air by her throat, disarming her. Sinclair desperately struggles to pry his crushing golden grip from her neck. Sinclair gasps in absolute horror as her powerful golden armor begins to violently disintegrate. Bethesda launches a swift magical counterattack, urging her ally to prioritize survival over her armor. A powerful dark magic projectile slices through the air with immense kinetic velocity. Sotrakros calmly tracks the incoming spear while keeping his crushing grip on Sinclair. A devastating magical explosion erupts directly on target, consuming the clearing in thick black smoke. A low rumble echoes through the shadows as a heavy oppressive energy fills the battlefield. Raising his hand, Sotrakros channels a catastrophic vortex of pure destructive power. The red-haired warrior focuses his cold, merciless gaze on his targets, ready to strike. Karos stares in absolute disbelief, questioning if this overwhelming pressure is the hunter's true strength. Karos grimly identifies the terrifying power as an absolute force of exclusion and total denial. Sotrakros glares down at his captive, entirely unimpressed by their desperate coordinated struggle. Calling them a mere nuisance, the legendary hunter casually tosses the Golden Knight aside. Bethesda quickly leaps forward and catches her unconscious companion before she hits the ground. Bethesda desperately questions Karos about the location of the enemy they are supposed to fight. Karos narrows his eyes with grim confidence, asserting that their target will arrive very soon. A violent gust of wind shakes the forest treetops, signaling an impending arrival. Sotrakros addresses Karos, identifying him as someone rejected by vile forces. The hunter pauses, correcting his analysis as he senses a deeper truth within his opponent. Sotrakros notes that Keros is actually one who believed he was completely abandoned by Rem. Sinclair looks up in complete shock, questioning the heavy implications of the hunter's words. Vowing to crush those ignorant of the truth, Sotrakros prepares a devastating blast of dark energy. Realizing there is no other choice, Bethesda fiercely prepares to meet his attack head-on. With the battlefield in absolute ruins, a fierce battle cry echoes as a red-haired warrior fiercely declares that their score has finally been settled. She swiftly leaps backward, utilizing her dark magic to escape the legendary hunter's destructive reach. A catastrophic clash of destructive fire and brilliant blue elemental energy erupts across the clearing with massive force. Gasping in utter disbelief, Bethesda is stunned by the sheer magnitude of the sudden magical collision. Sinclair watches the chaotic aftermath in absolute shock as the high-stakes battle reaches a terrifying peak. Surrounded by billowing dark smoke, the relentless red-haired hunter remains completely unfazed by their unified assault. Seeing a long-awaited ally arrive, Keros triumphantly shouts that their crucial reinforcement has finally joined the fray. A heavily armored metal boot steps firmly onto the dirt, signaling a powerful new warrior has entered the field. A white-haired knight in pristine silver armor walks past, coldly commanding the red-haired demon lord to stay quiet. The white-haired knight grimly admits that she arrived entirely alone to buy them precious time to prepare. Rising like a dark titan, Sotrakros unleashes an overwhelming surge of oppressive black energy that shakes the surroundings. Walking calmly toward her ally, the white-haired knight mockingly remarks on his consistently reckless and insane plans. Keros awkwardly laughs, sheepishly scratching his face as he confesses things went completely off script. Keros lightheartedly sighs over his failed plan while the silent hunter glares from the shadows in intense confusion. Drawing her blade with a sharp ring, the white-haired knight commands Keros to keep his head down. She steps resolutely toward the dark, swirling aura of the menacing red-haired hunter. Sotrakros demands to know if she is a mortal who has received a divine calling from the gods. A colossal explosion of pure light and shadowy energy collides, shaking the entire forest floor with immense force. The white-haired knight braces against the pressure, questioning how he could instantly perceive her true nature. She aggressively sweeps her sword, rejecting any notion of being honored by his divine recognition. The hunter watches in surprise as her precise high-speed strike successfully tears his white fur cape. Grinning with absolute thrill, the silver-clad knight rushes forward, eager to prove her mettle in a worthy battle. Sotrakros clenches his fist, gathering a concentrated vortex of brilliant blue magical power to strike. The knight freezes in shock, confused as to why the hunter suddenly retracted his devastating attack. Staring her down with supreme confidence, Sotrakros coldly acknowledges her impressive combat strength. Erupting with a terrifying purple aura, he proudly declares his status as a demon lord and her true assigned enemy. Keros watches in sheer panic, sensing an incredibly dangerous level of magical energy gathering in the hunter's hand. With absolute desperation, Keros screams for the white-haired knight, Quasha, to retreat immediately. Sotrakros unleashes a massive, swarming horde of dark purple energy serpents upon the battlefield. Quasha defends herself as a colossal shadow serpent rears its fangs directly before her. She gasps in horror as the crushing coils of dark magic tightly wrap around her body, rendering her helpless. Bethesda charges forward in desperation, warning that even a hero cannot defeat this monstrosity alone. Keros firmly grabs Bethesda's shoulder, urgently warning her to suppress her demonic aura to avoid detection. The rapid clattering of horse hooves echoes loudly, cutting through the dense forest canopy. A handsome blonde prince in black and gold royal armor arrives at the head of a massive tabouret. Waving his hand high, the prince confidently orders the elite kingdom knights to slay the demon lord. The red-haired hunter looks down in triumph as the heavily battered Quasha collapses to her knees. Covered in dirt and blood, the white-haired knight struggles to support herself with their sword. Steady footsteps approach her as a mockingly calm voice questions her lack of endurance. A gentle gloved hand reaches out and softly grips the knight's damaged shoulder armor. The blonde prince cradles the exhausted hero in his arms, deeply concerned by her severe injuries. Quasha weakly opens her eyes, desperately whispering for the prince to remain on high guard. With a blazing red eye of pure malice, the grinning hunter warns that this foe is unlike any ordinary demon. The prince gently hands the unconscious hero to Sinclair, asking her to prioritize her safety. Keros crosses his arms, dryly noting that their royal ally arrived a bit later than scheduled. The prince waves off the complaint, playfully reminding him how difficult it was to mobilize the army. Behind them, the elite royal knights swiftly dismount their horses, ready for an all-out assault. Borean and Halion draw their massive blades, ready to lay down their lives for the kingdom. Valahin and Garion step forward, unsheathing their swords with absolute resolve. As a veteran gray-bearded knight draws his weapon, a shocked Keros suddenly realizes Quasha's true identity was a perfect disguise. Just when hope seems entirely lost, a legendary showdown erupts as the terrifying demon lord mockingly prepares to crush the kingdom's ultimate protectors. He smiles wickedly, openly mocking Keros' final desperate cards. Keros and the prince watch anxiously, dreading the demon lord's next move. Releasing a shockwave of speed, Quasha charges forward with absolute conviction. Rising with a terrifying purple aura, Sotrikos claims their efforts are useless. The white-haired hero leaps forward, descending with a precise blinding strike. A golden shockwave slices directly through the Demon Lord's defensive fur. In a flash of good, she successfully grazes his cheek. Emboldened by her successful hit, Quiesha prepares for another devastating strike. Her triumph is cut short as a massive hand crushes her throat. He demands if she fears him, while she proudly defies him. An oppressive vortex of darkness erupts, threatening to consume everyone in its path. She gasps in agony as his crushing grip tightens with malicious force. Demanding backup, the Royal Knights charge to save their captured comrade. A violent magical blast sends the attacking knights flying backward helplessly. The defeated knights grunt in pain, completely overwhelmed by his power. In a blur of speed, the dark threat repositions himself instantly. Swirling dark energy ribbons wrap around the unbothered, grinning Demon Lord. The entire unit stands completely frozen in absolute horror and disbelief. The prince gasps in terror, realizing the battle is entirely unwinnable. Bathesia and Sinclair stare anxiously, knowing they are out of options. Bathesia grimly smiles, confirming that they are facing a true Demon Lord. Karos commands Bathesia to initiate their secret backup plan immediately. Cracking her knuckles, Bathesia promises she only needs 3 minutes to prepare. Sparks of intense blue lightning crackle wildly across the battlefield's ground. Bathesia sprints along the magical line, channeling her power as bait. Sensing a new threat, Sotrikos draws his blade to defend himself. The veteran gray-bearded knight leaps forward, roaring with pure vengeance. Their heavy steel blades collide in a blinding shower of sparks. The unyielding Demon Lord effortlessly blocks the veteran's ferocious assault. With blinding speed, the knight unleashes a rapid flurry of dual slashes. The veteran screams in rage, vowing to end the demon's reign. Sotrikos narrows his eyes coldly, preparing his deadly counterattack. The remaining royal knights leap forward to overwhelm the monster together. He raises his hand, unleashing a terrifying swarm of shadow serpents. The veteran knight screams in agony as a dark beast strikes him. The surrounding knights are violently scattered by the shadowy onslaught. A dark serpent wraps tightly around a knight, trapping him completely. The helpless warrior watches in dread as a shadow beast looms. Trembling in absolute terror, the soldier questions if there is any hope. Sotrikos coldly demands his death, sending the final strike forward. The desperate veteran knight screams for his men to run away. The massive shadow snake opens its gaping maw to consume him. Bathesia's smug voice suddenly echoes, commanding the Demon Lord to halt. Smiling triumphantly, Bathesia reveals her secret trap is finally fully active. A massive glowing magic seal erupts directly beneath the startled Demon Lord. Sotrikos gasps in absolute shock as he recognizes the teleportation magic. Waving playfully, Bathesia bids him a final farewell to the demon world. A blinding pillar of pink light shoots upward, trapping him inside. Sotrikos screams in utter despair as he is banished from the battlefield. A massive pillar of light erupts from the active teleportation seal. The powerful banishment magic swirls violently, completing the Demon Lord's exile. Exhausted from the brutal clash, the red-haired knight collapses to her knees in relief. The red-haired knight catches her breath, gasping with immense relief that they managed to survive the deadly ordeal. The blonde prince demands an explanation about the chaotic aftermath and the current location of the defeated Demon Lord. Karos calmly explains that the banishment magic successfully returned the Demon Lord back to his dark domain. Far away, the ominous Gothic palace of the Demon Lord stands silent under a blood-red moon. Back at the castle, the prince admits to Karos that their initial battle strategy completely fell apart. The prince rubs his head, deeply worried about the severe casualties suffered by the kingdom's elite swordsmen. The prince somberly reveals that one of their legendary elite knights tragically lost his life during the battle. Looking back, the prince admits he completely underestimated the terrifying raw strength of the Demon Lord. Karos explains that their foe is one of the 4 legendary rulers dominating the demon realm. A comforting hand gently pats the stressed prince on his shoulder to reassure him. Karos reassures the prince, stating that defeating such a massive threat is still a monumental victory. The prince acknowledges the political complications, worrying about the kingdom's depleted military power despite the successful defense. The exhausted white-haired hero slowly opens her eyes and weakly calls out to the prince. The prince frantically asks if she is all right, only for the hero to mockingly complain about his loud voice. The prince quickly blushes and apologizes, gently holding her hand to keep her from overexerting herself. Standing nearby, Karos playfully snickers at the prince's uncharacteristically flustered and embarrassed reaction. As they walk down the corridor, Karos asks the red-haired companion about Sinclair's current condition. The red-haired companion reassures him that Sinclair is resting and will recover after a few days. She then changes the subject, asking Karos what his next move is regarding the demon princess Vulcania. She notes that their main threat, the Demon Lord, has been successfully sent back to his palace. Karos coldly responds that they no longer have any political obligation to protect her. Karos pushes open the grand golden doors, confessing his personal desire for her to leave their territory. Turning around with a calm smile, the purple-haired demon princess promises that she will leave soon. The two enter the luxurious chamber where the demon princess warmly welcomes them inside. The purple-haired demon princess nervously states that she has an important matter to discuss privately with Kairos. Sardonically commenting on the demon's timing, the red-haired companion tells Kairos to call her once they finish. Kairos calmly agrees and makes himself comfortable in a velvet armchair. Sitting opposite her, Kairos prompts the silent demon princess to speak her mind. The demon princess nervously clenches her skirt, showing her intense anxiety over the discussion. She awkwardly stammers that the threat of the demon lord is gone, gratefully thanking him for his help. Kairos leans forward, asking her to get straight to the point of her request. Pleading nervously with her fingers pressed together, she asks Kairos if she can finally return to her territory. Sinclair suddenly enters carrying a beverage pitcher, shocking the demon princess with her sudden silent arrival. Sinclair glares coldly at the demon princess, accusing her of attempting to betray them after receiving their help. The demon princess jumps up in a panic, desperately shouting that she has no intention of betraying them. Kairos takes a sip of his tea, calmly demanding to know her actual reasons for wanting to return. She explains that she simply wishes to rebuild her territory, which was severely neglected due to the conflict. She somberly notes that her grand palace has been left abandoned and decaying for far too long. The demon princess reassures him that her soul is bound to him, making betrayal impossible, which Kairos accepts. Her eyes widen in absolute disbelief as she asks if he is actually permitting her to leave. Sinclair pours tea while Kairos sets a singular crucial condition before granting her departure. The demon princess nervously gulps, anxiously waiting to hear what his condition will be. Kairos points to a map, asking her about the ancient ruins located on the western border of her territory. She curiously confirms their existence, wondering what his sudden interest in the ancient pyramid ruins is. Kairos requests that she retrieve and bring back a specific valuable item hidden deep within those ruins. Stepping onto a glowing teleportation seal, the demon princess confidently agrees, calling the task easy. The purple-haired demon princess bids them a confident farewell as the blinding teleportation light sweeps her away. Determined to prove her worth, the demon princess Volcania immediately sets off to scour the ancient western ruins, only to find absolutely nothing of value inside the treasure chests. Undeterred by her initial failure, Kairos insists she keeps searching until she finds the artifact, sending her back with unwavering commands. The poor princess can only scream in despair, praying that this relentless, exhausting chore is nothing but a bad dream. Turning his attention to their resources, Kairos asks his loyal assistant Lilith about the total points they have managed to accumulate so far. Adjusting her glasses, Lilith reveals they have accumulated 5,000 points, a sum that Kairos finds surprisingly disappointing. Despite the lower count, a mysterious new gacha box suddenly manifests on the system screen, costing 500 points to unlock. Intrigued by the new option, an excited Kairos prepares to spend his hard-earned points to see what lies inside. Before he can act, Lilith firmly grabs his wrist, warning him not to waste his precious points so carelessly. She strictly advises him to limit his opening to 3 boxes, leaving Kairos jokingly wondering who is actually in charge. Moments later, Lilith presents the newly purchased mysterious black boxes, eagerly asking if he is ready to inspect their contents. Anticipating a rare reward, Kairos reaches out, hoping these boxes hold items of incredible value. Lilith anxiously watches, dreading the possibility of pulling another useless legendary ore that they cannot use. Taking a deep breath, Kairos pops open the first container, releasing a faint purple gull. A sudden ominous dark energy bursts forth from the box, swirling into the air. To their utter bewilderment, the grand prize inside the container is simply another smaller, identical black box. Lilith curiously asks if he recognizes the peculiar object, prompting Kairos to examine the mysterious secondary box. Embossed on the lid is a sinister snake forming the letter S, a dark symbol representing a very specific group of believers. The scene shifts to a desolate desert wasteland where a lone hooded wanderer struggles through a blinding sandstorm. Channeling mysterious magic, the traveler raises a wooden staff, summoning a swirling vortex of energy. The traveler reaches a hand directly into the swirling rift, seeking a realm far beyond their own. In a terrifying turn of events, a gigantic, monstrous arm erupts from the portal and violently snatches the helpless traveler. A horrific spray of crimson splatters across the desolate sands, marking the traveler's brutal demise. The glowing blue snake symbol shines ominously over the quiet sands, representing a place known as the world of hell. Back in reality, Lilith tosses the cursed box over to Kairos, confirming that it bears the mark of that hellish underworld. Lilith muses that the Demon King must have had a profound, hidden motive for bestowing this enigmatic item upon them. Peering deep inside, however, she is left disappointed to find absolutely nothing inside the hollow container. Sensing a trick, Kairos instructs her to try placing a physical object inside the empty void. Inspecting a mundane ritual dagger, Kairos confirms that the weapon holds no inherent magical properties. Following his lead, Lilith gently drops a small decorative pendant into the abyss of the black box. The interior of the box reveals an endless, star-filled void of absolute space. Lilith gasps in astonishment as the box effortlessly swallows the object without filling up in the slightest. Kairos realizes they have obtained a space expansion artifact, even though Lilith cannot sense any magic radiating from it. He explains that the device utilizes a foreign, otherworldly power completely different from their native magic system. With one box remaining, Kairos prepares to open it, hoping for something genuinely useful as a brilliant blue light erupts. The sudden spike in energy catches him completely off guard, cutting his bored complaint short. A blinding pillar of sapphire energy shoots toward the ceiling, knocking Kairos backward in sheer shock. Both Kairos and Lilith stare upward in confusion, bracing themselves for a potential explosion. Instead of a deadly weapon, an adorable giant blue cloud creature with rosy cheeks cheerfully floats out of the box. Panic-stricken, Lilith rushes forward to shield her lord from the unknown bouncy cloud entity. The chubby cloud creature simply smiles back with absolute innocence, completely unbothered by their panic. The group gathers around the table, watching the bizarre giant blue cloud float casually behind Kara's seat. Intrigued, the red-haired companion reaches out to touch the soft, fluffy creature, comparing it to a living blanket. As she gives it a gentle squeeze, the squishy cloud lets out a soft, curious sound. The creature puffs up in mild annoyance as she continues to playfully pinch its chubby cheeks. Startled by the unwanted affection, the swift cloud suddenly zooms away, leaving her gasping in surprise. While the red-haired companion hilariously chases the escaping cloud in the background, the blonde knight turns to address Kairos. With a grave look in her eyes, the blonde knight reveals she has an incredibly important question to ask him. Sensing the change in atmosphere, Kairos narrows his eyes, preparing himself for whatever heavy topic she is about to raise. The silent presence of mysterious ancient books on the desk hints at the dark secrets they are about to uncover. Resting his hands on the desk, Kairos calmly prompts her to speak her mind, ready to face whatever truth lies ahead. A heavy, suffocating silence fills the room as the golden-armored blonde knight hesitates to speak her truth. She finally breaks the silence, revealing a cryptic message left behind by the formidable warrior Pseudocross. Kairos leans forward in his grand chair, silently urging her to continue. With sorrow in her golden eyes, she confesses her long-held belief of being utterly abandoned. A bitter memory resurfaces, recalling how the red-haired warrior mocked her rejection. Pseudocross's cruel words echo in her mind, fueling her deepest doubts about divine protection. Kairos demands to know if she has lost her faith in the gods. Faltering under his gaze, the blonde knight desperately squeezes her green plush companion while defending her divine past. Clutching the squeaking creature tightly, she questions why a demon lord would cede such profound doubt. She turns to Kairos, pleading for his perspective on the ominous warning. Standing up from his desk, Kairos prepares to deliver a singular, chilling truth. Leaning in close, Kairos whispers a dark warning to watch the kingdom's divine warriors with extreme caution. He retreats to his throne, coldly stating this is her problem to solve before offering her departure. Stepping forward, the blonde knight resolves to find the answers to this conspiracy on her own. She departs into the night, whispering her gratitude to the demon lord under the shining moon. The scene shifts to Kairos sleeping soundly in his chamber until a sudden shout breaks the peace. Kairos remains in a deep, drooling slumber as his servant desperately tries to rouse him. Sitting up, groggy and annoyed, Kairos demands to know who dared disturb his rest. His loyal assistant Lilith presents a mysterious, dark invitation card demanding his attention. He groggily takes the black card, wondering what urgent trouble has arrived now. Lilith explains that a mandatory banquet for all demon lords is scheduled in 1 week. Silhouetted rulers with glowing eyes loom, emphasizing that attendance is strictly compulsory. Dreading the tedious social gathering, Kairos dramatically flops back onto the floor in sheer annoyance. 1 week later, the Grand Academy building stands brightly lit under the starry night sky as elite guests arrive. Shadowy figures mingle inside the massive banquet windows as the sound of chatter fills the air. Inside, the luxurious hall is packed with noble guests and bustling attendants. A green-haired demon girl with delicate antennae watches the crowd in silent, serious contemplation. A formidable green-haired gatekeeper blocks the path to the main hall, greeting visitors with a stern gaze. Kairos arrives in his dark green cloak, dryly noting his unexpected return to the academy halls. The muscular gatekeeper stands his ground, gripping his massive spear. Kairos smirks, familiar with the guard, and greets Gatekeeper Clairvoyant casually. The gatekeeper remains stoic, sizing up the powerful visitor. Recognizing his status, the guard formally welcomes Kairos, the demon lord of madness and greed. The mood lightens instantly as the gatekeeper cheerfully ushers Kairos, Lilith, and their bouncy blue cloud inside. Lilith shivers nervously, confessing that she felt an overwhelming wave of tension from the guard. Kairos chuckles, reassuring her that people often misunderstand the gatekeeper's intense appearance. With a heavy thud, the grand door slams shut behind them, sealing their entry. They step into the main hall, which is buzzing with elite guests, whispering and enjoying wine. A sudden wave of shock sweeps through the room as all conversation halts. Noble guests immediately begin gossiping about the legendary demon lord who defeated the Sun God. Kairos can feel their intense stares, while Lilith proudly whispers about his terrifying reputation. Flustered and proud, Lilith gushes about the prestige of serving such a legendary lord. Both Kairos and his round blue companion stare back with utterly unamused, sweat-dropped expressions. The sound of elegant clicking heels draws attention as a mysterious guest walks across the red carpet. A striking blue-haired girl wearing a blue uniform steps directly into Kairos' path with a cheerful greeting. Karos stops, staring blankly as he fails to recognize her at all. Completely offended, the blue-haired girl sweat drops, asking if he has genuinely forgotten her. Karos tilts his head, deep in thought, as he tries to place her face. He analyzes her vibrant blue hair and sharp eyes, realizing she does seem incredibly familiar. Just as he tries to remember, the sudden approach of more footsteps on the carpet promises even more unexpected arrivals. A sudden tense reunion erupts as the blue-haired demon lord Gortia boldly declares her presence alongside 5 other colorful demon lords. Karos taps his hand in sudden recognition as he finally remembers who was standing before him. He recalls their past academy days when they were collectively known as the Rainbow Demon Lords. Flashbacks of their school days show how Karos struggled to remember them by anything other than their distinct hair colors. Scratching his cheek, Karos casually asks if they are still upset about failing to defeat him back then. Outraged that he only remembers them by color, Gortia flares her powerful red aura in pure anger. Clenching her fist, she fumes at his blatant attempt to humiliate her and her peers. Her companions desperately try to hold her back as Gortia rages against the insult to their honor. The gray-haired demon lord warily glances around, warning Gortia that the other guests are watching. Nearby demon lords gossip among themselves, questioning Gortia's weak reputation and fearing an outright brawl. She grits her teeth in silent, boiling rage over the insults. A stern warning echoes through the hall that starting a fight here will result in immediate execution. Whispers fill the room as the crowd notes that the legendary demon lord Karos is on a completely different level. The guests discuss his godlike status and unparalleled achievements that set him far above the rest. Feeling the crushing weight of his reputation, Gortia is frustrated by her own lack of accomplishments. Shaking off the tension, Karos calmly declines a glass of wine offered by a passing maid. Gortia trembles with rage, refusing to believe someone with no demonic energy could defeat a god. She smugly points a finger at Karos, loudly accusing him of using cheap tricks to defeat the sun god. Lilith steps forward to defend her lord's honor, but Karos holds her back, keeping his composure. Gortia demands that he confess his alleged deception for the sake of his own future. Karos dismisses her threats as the same empty nonsense she used to spout during their academy days. Letting out a tired sigh, Karos asks if she has finally finished talking. Turning his back, Karos cold shoulders Gortia, declaring he has nothing left to say to her. Gortia is left speechless and utterly humiliated as he walks away without a second glance. Suddenly, the grand doors creak open to reveal a striking purple-haired demon lord entering the hall. Gortia's face lights up as she instantly recognizes her idol. She rushes forward to give her long-lost friend an eager embrace. Lilith quickly alerts Karos to the arrival of the formidable purple-haired demon lord Vulcania. Karos amusingly reflects on how Gortia's bad attitude is just a poor imitation of Vulcania's personality. Gortia deviously plots to use Vulcania's superior reputation to get revenge on Karos. Vulcania responds nervously as Gortia eagerly prepares to point out the target of her anger. Vulcania calmly reminds her that only high-ranking demon lords are permitted at this event. Spotting Karos in the crowd, Vulcania gasps in sheer paralyzing terror. She shrieks in fear as Karos casually turns his head and addresses her by name. Oblivious to her panic, Gortia points at Karos and accuses him of tricking the entire demon realm. Gortia urges her to help expose him, completely confused by Vulcania's sudden silence. Forcing a sweaty smile, Vulcania nervously greets Karos while secretly panicking inside. Vulcania is horrified to hear Karos' voice echoing directly in her mind, assuring her he won't expose her. Karos smugly explains that their soul imprint allows them to communicate privately through their minds. Ordered to act natural, Vulcania suddenly shoves the confused Gortia away. Vulcania dreads the consequences of their secret, knowing that if her submission to Karos is exposed, her reputation will be destroyed. Ignoring Gortia's protests, Vulcania coldly commands her to shut up and steps forward. Gortia is left completely dumbfounded by the harsh, unexpected rejection. To the utter shock of everyone in the room, Vulcania bows deeply before Karos. Sweating under his intense gaze, Vulcania formally welcomes her master. Gortia screams in disbelief, demanding to know if this is some kind of cruel prank. Vulcania turns back, her eyes glowing with terrifying, cold hostility. She walking past her, reiterating her chilling command for Gortia to remain silent. Trembling, Gortia desperately begs to know why she is being treated with such disdain. Vulcania delivers a brutal final rejection, leaving Gortia's pride shattered. But how long can Vulcania hide her terrifying submission to the Demon Lord of Madness? With cold contempt, the purple-haired demon lord points directly at Gortia's forehead, asserting that Karos' unmatched prestige places him on a completely superior level. Looming close with a cold stare, Vulcania dismisses Gortia as worthless compared to Karos and demands she get out of her sight. In a hushed telepathic exchange, Vulcania anxiously hopes she performed well enough while Karos smugly nods, promising to keep their master-servant soul contract secret. Left standing alone on the crimson carpet, Gortia trembles in total disbelief over the brutal rejection from her former idol. Her shock quickly turns to boiling fury as she glares at Kairos, demanding to know what he did to Vulcania. Kairos remains entirely unbothered, advising Gortia to drop her unreasonable tantrum to salvage whatever tiny shred of reputation she has left. Infuriated by his calm composure, Gortia begins gathering a surge of crackling blue magical energy in her hand. Unwilling to back down, the enraged blue-haired girl lunges forward with a violent scream, ordering him to shut his mouth. Lilith instantly leaps in front of her master, clenching her fist and ready to intercept the incoming magical attack. Gently stopping his loyal servant, Kairos calmly reminds Lilith that starting a brawl in front of all the gathered demon lords is unnecessary. Gortia charges through the air, her face twisted in rage as her hand crackles with lethal blue lightning. Suddenly, a powerful, deep voice cuts through the tension, dryly noting that the banquet hall has gotten entirely too noisy. Before her strike can land, a massive muscular hand forcefully grabs Gortia directly by the face, shocking her completely. With effortless strength, the towering newcomer shoves Gortia backward, ignoring her desperate screams to let her go. Nearby servants and noble guests watch the sudden physical intervention unfold with stunned, wide-eyed expressions. Spotting the giant, Kairos breaks into a cold sweat, recognizing the terrifying brute as the hot-headed demon lord Sochocross. Chicken and bruised, Gortia falls onto the floor, looking up in sheer terror at the formidable orange-haired giant. Looming over her with a menacing dark aura, Sochocross raises his hand and coldly asks if she has anything else to say. Kairos suddenly steps in, casually grabbing Sochocross's wrist to neutralize his dark aura while noting his exceptionally late arrival. Sochocross immediately calms down, recognizing Kairos and playfully admitting that he was actually the one causing too much noise. Watching from the floor, Gortia is left utterly dumbfounded that Kairos so easily intercepted the terrifying giant's attack. Rising to her feet, Gortia hesitantly approaches the giant, asking if he actually knows Kairos personally. Sochocross flares his oppressive dark energy once more, flashing a menacing grin as he asks if he truly needs to answer her. Overwhelmed by his sheer pressure, the blue-haired girl trembles violently and quickly stammers an apology to de-escalate his anger. Walking away alongside Kairos, Sochocross lets his aura fade, while Kairos silently hopes this intervention finally secures some peace. Lilith giggles behind her hand, thoroughly amused by how easily Gortia was put in her place. A heavy iron shift slams violently onto the red carpet, signaling a sudden shift in the banquet's atmosphere. The green-haired gatekeeper steps forward, loudly announcing the grand arrival of the supreme ruler. Sochocross looks back with a sharp gaze, dryly noting that the guest of honor has arrived late. Seated upon a massive wing-adorned throne, the Grand Demon King casually apologizes for his delay, citing urgent matters. A butler serves red wine to the towering ruler, who warmly welcomes the 72 demon lords ruling the human world. The imposing Demon King Astrea is revealed holding his glass high with a wicked, toothy grin. High-ranking rulers Capiria Bordeaux and Rubernia Marmaeus watch the gathering with serious, calculating expressions. Raising his glass high, the crimson-skinned king commands everyone in the luxurious hall to raise their drinks in a toast. Wine sloshes in the glass as the Demon King expresses his hopes that everyone enjoys the achievement-honoring banquet. Rubernia Marmaeus takes a silent sip of her wine, her cold eyes reflecting Kairos' image in the liquid. As they walk through the grand hall, Kairos notes that almost every supreme ruler has gathered tonight. Kairos suddenly pauses, catching a glimpse of a familiar face in the bustling crowd. He spots the green-haired demon lord Revan Lear, famous for her command over lust and desires. He recalls her insect lineage, imagining her sitting atop a mountain of ladybugs as the Bug Princess. Lilith curiously asks if they are acquainted, prompting Kairos to confirm they were classmates back at the academy. Impressed, Lilith whispers that the Bug Princess is rumored to possess power comparable to the top rulers. A black-spotted ladybug skitters across a nearby table, prompting Kairos to casually reflect on their past school days. Unrolling a golden scroll, the Demon King commands the crowd's attention to officially begin the award ceremony. He prepares to announce the Demon Lord who brought the most stability to their realm, while the crowd listens intently. The Demon King places a hand on the head of Reppenheim, honoring his stellar discipline and order. Next, a white-haired Demon Lord kneels to receive recognition for seizing the most human territories. This formal ceremony proves that their bloody achievements are highly valued and officially recognized by their Supreme King. The white-haired general walks down the red carpet as the king announces the next award for the most bloodshed. Reading further, the Demon King pauses, noting that the legendary warrior Baticia is absent after losing her qualifications. But what dark secrets behind her downfall will Kairos uncover next? The ultimate award is finally within reach, but Lilith fears Kairos has been completely overlooked. Kairos remains incredibly calm, anticipating the ultimate prize that grants him a single wish from the sovereign. Lilith is absolutely stunned by his staggering confidence. The supreme ruler prepares to conclude the grand ceremony with a final announcement. Astrea commands attention as he introduces the final, most prestigious award for true demonic conduct. The crowd watches in awe as the king summons Kairos to the stage. Sochocross breaks into a hearty laugh, thoroughly amused by his rival's sudden rise to glory. Gortia bites her thumb in sheer fury, unable to accept his victory. Kneeling on the crimson carpet, Kairos prepares to receive his royal blessing. Estrella places a hand on his head, expressing his high expectations for his future. The king initiates the formal exchange. Estrella demands that Keros speak his true desire before the entire assembly. A strange floating mascot watches the historic exchange in suspense. Revenlier silently watches from the crowd, assuming Keros will reject the ceremonial offer. Estrella notes the gravity of this unprecedented request. Keros confidently extends his hand to name his reward. All accomplishments come with honor befitting of what was done. The Demon Lords consider the Demon King's recognition as their reward for their accomplishments. Keros flashes a wicked smile, refusing to settle for empty royal praises. Keros boldly prepares to shock the entire demon world with his historic demand. Astria asks if he truly intends to reject the reward like his predecessors. Smiling warmly, Keros demands the ultimate power of absolute pardon for all his sins. A horned demon lord laughs mockingly, declaring that Keros has completely lost his mind. Sodacross smirks, deeply intrigued by his reckless audacity. Whispers ripple through the hall as the nobles realize the danger of absolute pardon. Suspicion spreads like wildfire as the guests fear a potential betrayal of the king. Revenlier sweats in disbelief, overwhelmed by the sheer danger of his request. Revenlier trembles in absolute terror over his shocking ambition. Keros calmly notes their suspicion, eagerly waiting to see how the king will react. Estrella raises a hand to silence the murmuring crowd. The king asserts his supreme authority, shutting down all objections from the floor. Estrella points a sharp claw, declaring his absolute refusal to break his word. The sovereign drafts a binding contract, warning Keros he only gets one opportunity. Astria reveals a glowing scroll granting Keros absolute pardon for any future act. Keros gloats over his easy victory as the scroll floats into his hand. The Demon King suddenly interrupts with a warning. Blue lightning crackles over the scroll as the king introduces a sudden condition. The scroll dissolves into dust, shattering Kairos' hopes of an easy win. Estrella reveals a miniature land model, announcing a grand expansion of their territory. The king commands Keros to lead an expedition into the depths of hell. Estrella spreads his arms wide, sealing the deadly campaign as his non-negotiable term. An ancient map reveals the division between the human and demon realms. Hell remains a forbidden, uncharted wasteland where neither human nor demon has ever trod. Keros inspects his gear, suspecting the king planned this trap from the very beginning. Days later, the Lord of Madness begins his perilous journey to Hell. Keros turns around, utterly baffled to find Gortia and her crew of rookies following him. The desolate sandy barrier separating the demon world from hell looms before them. Gortia defensively claims they have no choice as fellow newcomers to the realm. Keros sighs deeply, realizing he is now babysitting a group of reckless rookies. Estrella's warning echoes as the group prepares to cross into the deadly unknown. Determined to prove her worth, the blue-haired demon lord Gortia demands that her companions follow the supreme ruler's strict orders. Looking at his quiet, green-haired companion, the black-haired warrior Keros questions if she is also considered a rookie on this mission. Standing in silence amidst the desolate dunes, the two seasoned demon lords exchange a long, wordless stare. Ready to dive into the danger, Keros touches the glowing blue portal to activate the threshold to hell. Warning his companions to keep pace, the black-haired warrior boldly steps forward into the swirling spatial rift. Panicking at his sudden departure, the rookies rush forward to avoid being left behind in the wasteland. Desperately trying to hide her hesitation, Gortia trembles before the swirling portal while insisting she is not afraid. Ignoring the blue-haired girl's pride entirely, the green-haired princess nonchalantly walks past her and enters the portal. Left with no other choice, Gortia's companions encourage their nervous leader to finally take the plunge. Swallowing her fear, Gortia commands her allies to follow her lead as she dives headfirst into the rift. Popping through to the other side, the blue-haired warrior gasps in sheer disbelief at her bizarre surroundings. Instead of a fiery wasteland, a quiet, ancient forest with a stone path stretches out before them. Keros and the green-haired princess look back calmly, dryly noting her exceptionally slow arrival. One by one, the rest of the rookie demon lords stumble out of the portal into the mysterious dark woods. Dismissing her guides with absolute arrogance, Gortia marches ahead, declaring she will brute force her way through any obstacle. Touching the lush green foliage, the overconfident girl assumes this realm is nothing more than an ordinary forest. Watching the rookies run off into the darkness, Keros sighs in deep frustration at their reckless behavior. Pragmatic as ever, Keros tells his green-haired ally to let the fools learn a hard lesson on their own. Feeling the suffocating atmosphere of the woods, Gortia begins to complain about the oppressive darkness around them. Despite her growing unease, the blue-haired girl forces herself to remain calm and downplay the danger. Stepping boldly onto the path, she smugly claims there is absolutely nothing to fear in these quiet woods. Suddenly, a small, menacing dark creature digging in the soil catches the group's attention. Confident in an easy victory, Gortia summons her crackling blue energy to strike down the pathetic beast. Sensing her hostile magic, the horrifying, vein-covered creature turns around with glowing, blood-red eyes. The monstrous beast screeches loudly as it leaps high into the air to launch an attack. Instantly reacting, Gortia blasts a powerful beam of blue energy straight through the monster's chest. To her horror, the gaping wound in the creature's torso begins to writhe and instantly heal itself. Sweating in pure terror, the blue-haired girl realizes this terrifying beast is far from a simple goblin. Karo suddenly leaps in, grabbing Gortia by the shoulder to pull her back from the deadly threat. As the monster stands firm, multiple pairs of glowing red eyes light up in the pitch-black shadows behind it. Dragging the frozen girl back, Karos harshly scolds her for foolishly underestimating the native beasts of hell. Looming in the darkness, the red-eyed creature stands menacingly as its pack surrounds the intruders. A deep, violent rumble shakes the forest floor as massive ancient roots begin to twist and coil. Thick, wooden tendrils slide across the ground with incredible speed, targeting the hostile beasts. Giant, ancient trees with glowing red eyes suddenly wake up, proving the forest itself is alive and hostile. Karos explains that many demon lords have tried to conquer this living territory in the past. Dozens of wooden roots strike in a violent flurry, instantly trapping the screeching monster. A massive glowing eye and a pale hand emerge from the wooden depths to crush the intruder. The trapped creature's hand quivers in agony as the insatiable forest drags it down into the earth. With a violent crack, the dense roots snap shut, completely devouring the creature without a trace. Shaken to her very core, Gortia stares in silence, finally realizing her terrifying insignificance in this realm. Crossing his arms, Karos cold-heartedly confirms that every single invader before them met the exact same gruesome fate. Desperate to maintain her composure, the blue-haired girl questions why their ruler would send them on a suicide mission. Completely ignoring her panic, Karos commands the green-haired princess to deploy her insects for scouting. Confused by the sudden request, the princess asks why they need to rely on her bugs. After Karos explains the necessity of gathering safe path data, she agrees to proceed while Gortia fumes silently. Releasing her power, the green-haired princess unleashes a swarm of glowing green ladybugs from her hand. The magical insects buzz forward in a glowing line, lighting up the dark, treacherous forest path. Still stubborn, Gortia questions what such tiny, fragile insects could possibly accomplish in this deadly place. As a glowing ladybug flies right in front of her face, Gortia loudly complains that a simple gust of wind could kill them all. But what terrifying secrets will these tiny scouts uncover next in the depths of hell? With a frantic scream, Gortia unleashes a brilliant magical blast to vaporize a single hovering insect. Breathing heavily, Gortia desperately tries to defend her embarrassing knee-jerk magical overreaction. Revenlier delivers a dry, sarcastic dismissal as her magical scout crawls safely on her palm. Gortia gasps in sheer disbelief upon realizing the fragile ladybug completely survived her direct magical blast. Unbothered by the dramatic scene, the bug princess gently coaxes her precious scout back into her sleeve. Pressing deeper into the dark forest, Karos begins to explain the terrifying origin of Revenlier's royal title. Karos casts a knowing glance back, cryptically questioning if the rookies understand her true reputation. Pausing on a massive log, the seasoned warrior commands a group to locate a temporary hiding spot. Trailing behind, Gortia fumes with silent rage at being led by a warrior completely devoid of demonic energy. Bitter thoughts consume Gortia as she directs her rising hostility toward the bug princess. A sinister smile creeps onto Gortia's face as she contemplates a lethal betrayal under the cover of the woods. Her dark schemes are instantly shattered as another sudden swarm of ladybugs sends her into a frantic panic. Revenlier offers a hilariously flat, insincere apology for her pet's sudden movements. Fuming with embarrassment, Gortia vows revenge while her companion desperately tries to keep her under control. Slipping away from the noisy rookies, Revenlier approaches Karos to deliver a highly urgent warning. Dropping to her knees, the princess reveals a chilling development regarding her scouting insects. A heavy, suffocating silence settles over the duo as she confirms that not a single scout has returned. Deep within the dark caverns, a solitary green scout crawls silently through the dangerous rocky terrain. An ominous gathering of magical bugs begins to concentrate a massive reservoir of demonic power. The bizarre biology of her clan is revealed, where an entire swarm sacrifices itself to birth a single child. From this massive sacrifice, the infant bug princess is born to reign supreme over her insect domain. Karos notes the grim implications, realizing whatever destroyed her resilient scouts is an extreme threat. Accepting the harsh reality, the warrior prepares for a desperate struggle for survival. A blood-curdling scream suddenly pierces the quiet darkness of the ancient forest. Tears streaming down her face, the once proud Gortia flees in absolute terror. A hideous red-eyed goblin leaps from the shadows to violently ambush the screaming rookie leader. Humbled and terrified, Gortia begs her companions for salvation as the beast closes in. Karos watches the chaotic chase with pure disdain, questioning how she could be so incompetent. The bug princess maintains a cold, unblinking stare as the screaming girl rushes toward them. Casting all her pride aside, Gortia prepares to do whatever it takes to survive the deadly onslaught. Screaming for help, the blue-haired girl throws her arms around Revenlier in a desperate embrace. The savage beast lunges from above, aiming a lethal strike directly at the two girls. With calm precision, Revenlier commands her hidden swarm of magical ladybugs to intercept the threat. The tiny insects detonate with incredible force, instantly obliterating the hostile monster. Trembling in relief, Gortia clings tightly to her savior as the danger finally passes. Met with a silent, judging stare, Gortia's defensive attitude quickly flares back up. Gortia loudly complains about her terrible luck, demanding to know why monsters only attack her. Revenlier calmly points toward the ground, revealing Gortia had simply wandered off the safe trail. The two experienced leaders walk away, advising the rookies to stick strictly to the established path. Despair washes over Gorsha. She realizes there is absolutely nowhere to hide in this cursed realm. The path ahead becomes increasingly treacherous as heavy thorns cover the forest floor. Parting the dense foliage, Karo senses their destination is close, but what terrifying secrets await them next?